Somber. I think there would be this big exhale for about a day. And then this turning inward and trying to reflect on what this means to us and our species and ourselves. Somber meaning serious.
Truthseekers, seek of truth. A truth so bold it's hard to hold. Truthseekers, yeah. Face the cash, face the cash.
Greetings and salutations, friends, and welcome back. We have another exciting special report to bring you here on Truthseekers tonight. We have been talking about the infiltration of intelligence, United States government intelligence assets, agents, and more for quite some time. But now I had been preparing to sort of give a more broad history of just that kind of thing that has been going on for quite some time now. To my knowledge, since the late 1980s, with the famous Paul Benowitz case. There is a new free documentary, and we definitely want to support people who are making independent films that educate people. It's something I'm very passionate about. So there's a new documentary called The Aviary, Disturbing Truth of UFOs. It's by a YouTube channel called Digital Vortex, and I apologize, I'm a terrible show host. I will be adding the link to that video, which we're going to be sampling tonight, to the description of our video here, or our podcast description. So I highly recommend this historical look at what we've been talking about here, which is government agent and, intelligence infiltration into the UFO community, manipulation of the UFO community. It's not a new thing. A lot of people think that it started with TTSA, which had a combined CIA experience of over 100 years, I believe, right? All those CIA people gonna suddenly come out, they're insiders, and they're suddenly going to come out and bring us disclosure. They brought us nothing. They brought us worthless garbage, but they all filled their pockets with a lot of money. Some of them are retired intelligence people. Very, very interesting. It's like there's a retirement plan if you're an intelligence asset or a CIA guy or an FBI guy or a DIA guy or an Air Force Office of Special Investigations guy. And that retirement plan revolves around telling people that UFOs and aliens are real and the aliens are here and there's back engineering programs, and it goes on and on and on. And we have currently I talked about a switch. There was a switch in 2016 and 2017 when TTSA sort of grabbed the disclosure narrative. But before that, largely, most researchers would agree that government infiltration and manipulation into the UFO community was more in the shadows. 2016, 2017 marked a big turning point because suddenly they were right there in the spotlights, taking center stage and giving out information. Now, is this real information? Is this disinformation or misinformation? I believe it's disinformation and misinformation. And right now we have an incredible amount of intelligence assets or former intelligence assets, agents, whatever, infiltrating the UFO community. We've got Anjali, who was Defense Intelligence Agency, and she was an information warfare specialist. We've got John Ramirez, CIA guy, talking about getting abducted by aliens and how disclosure's coming in the next few years. And it gets wacky. We've got FBI guys, John D'Souza, the guy who claims that they stole the X-Files episodes from his case files. Love to see those case files, but we've got Lou Elizondo, former Pentagon official who claimed he ran a UFO program, but it turns out he only ran a UFO program in the land of make-believe. We've got so many more. Richard Doty, the original OG disinformation, government disinformation agent. We're going to break it all down for you tonight. If you're just joining us, you are watching Truthseekers. We've got a special report for you tonight on government disinformation and PSYOPs and intelligent asset infiltration into the UFO community. I've asked this question before, and I'm going to ask it again. If a bunch of spooks just started going in and manipulating any other small subculture or group of people, like cosplayers, what if there was just intelligence assets controlling the information flow in the world of cosplay? Like, this would be a major media story. But that's exactly what we have in the UFO world: an infiltration, an invasion of intelligence people with backgrounds in things like information warfare. Both Dave Grush and Anjali. Information warfare was their specialty when they worked for the government. It is so in your face right now, but I thought a historical perspective might be helpful to have us break this whole thing down. We want to take a moment to welcome all those in the live chat. Good to see such a good crowd here for our special report. We welcome old friends and hopefully some new friends as well. So I wanted to get into a little bit. I don't want to waste too much time on history of psychological operations where information warfare, as opposed to a wider brush like wars and things. I'm all for that, but when it comes to psychological operations and information warfare being used against American citizens right on our American soil by American operatives, I have a problem with that. Some of you may not be aware, but Barack Obama made it completely and totally legal to use propaganda on the American people. Did you know that? After he did that, it's completely legal for the American government, the United States government, to use literal propaganda and perform psychological operations, I suppose, on its very own people. And in the world of psychological operations it's shrouded in mystery and manipulation. But one question that I always looms large to me. And that is, can we truly trust those who govern us to ever tell us the truth? Tonight, I invite you to join us on a journey through some history as we delve deep into the shadowy realm of the United States government's psychological operations, some of their information warfare, and the chilling impact it has had on both foreign adversaries, and some say even on its very own citizens. Since the birth of the United States, in fact, the United States government has used psychological operations, or PSYOPs as they're commonly called, as a powerful tool in its arsenal to control outcomes. But what are the hidden motives behind these operations? If we rewind all the way back to World War II, there was precursors to today's intelligence organizations. The Office of Strategic Services used propaganda to demoralize enemy troops and to boost civilian morale. There were whole departments created to create propaganda. Save those tin cans, we'll recycle them and make bullets out of them. You know, there were all kinds of drives to manipulate people to do that which the government wanted. Now, some would say in the case of a war situation, you want to have good morale of your citizenry and encourage them to help in the war effort. I'm not sure how I feel about the morality or ethics of doing so. Maybe it was for the greater good, but things get much darker, incredibly more dark, in my opinion, after World War II. Because these tactics that they became so successful at, they evolved during the Cold War, when the United States engaged in a psychological battle of wills against the former Soviet Union. There were disinformation campaigns and attempts to manipulate perceptions inside of the Soviet Union to influence its citizenry. And this sowed confusion and distrust among some nations. Now, the specter of psychological operations didn't stay confined to foreign soil. And that's when I have a big problem with PSYOPs. In the 1950s, the CIA's MK-Ultra program aimed to explore and experiment with, and some would say even use and implement, mind control techniques against American citizens. This, of course, I think most people would agree, would push ethical boundaries and violate human rights in the process. As the nation later grappled with civil rights movements, psychological operations found new targets. There were FBI programs that infiltrated and disrupted activist groups, causing division and discord among marginalized communities that were simply fighting for equal rights and equality. Fast forward to the digital age, where we are now, where information warfare takes on a new form. There is cyber espionage. There is active, right now, there are multiple disinformation campaigns. And social media manipulation, of course, is quickly becoming the weapon of choice. And it is being actively used by many countries against their adversaries, Russia and China, for example. But what about psychological operations against the American people themselves? In the aftermath of the September 11th attacks, some believe that the government employed fear-based messaging to justify controversial policies and corrode Americans' civil liberties. From the war of terror to the divisive political landscape, suspicions arise. Has psychological warfare been used to manipulate global opinion and maintain control over the masses? Are the rich and powerful ruling class using these tactics to keep things status quo the way they like them? What influence has this manipulation had on American culture? The cultural impact of psychological operations is undeniable. From the Red Scare to the demonization of cultural movements such as the hippie counterculture or the anti-Vietnam War culture or the Black Panthers, PSYOPs have shaped history because they have manipulated and shaped public perception, and often they have disrupted social harmony or done damage to individuals and groups that wanted to create a better, more just, more fair society. Imagine that. As we peel back the layers of secrecy from these psychological operations, this information warfare, one truth to me becomes crystal clear. Distrust in the American government and the elite ruling class of this country is deeply rooted, some would say, came directly from a vast history of psychological operations and information warfare being waged by the rich, the powerful elite. The shadows of deceit may continue to cast doubt on the intentions of those who would wield such massive power. And let's be clear, the ability to wage an effective information war is power. The ability to psychologically manipulate people into doing that which you desire is power. Tonight, we'll go on a journey of truth about how some of these programs have been thrust and waged against members of the UFO community. What and why would a bunch of intelligence people suddenly inject themselves into the UFO community? Some promising disclosure, some promising smoking gun proof or evidence of alien visitation on Earth. All of them, strangely, filling their pockets with money this entire time. Most of them never actually proving claims. And when we look through the long lens of history, we can see that this has been taking place, to my knowledge, since at least the late 80s, but probably sooner. Tonight, we're going to get into the intelligence manipulation of the UFO community, and some would say the UFO narratives and discussion, the discourse about this topic. I believe they've been manipulating it for a long, long time. But before we get to sort of a historical perspective through this aviary film, I thought we could just enlighten ourselves by listening to a former CIA agent who talked about various methods of manipulation and that would be used in order to gain an advantage, in order to win the hearts and minds of people, but to win for sure. So we're going to cite fair use. Let me put my fair use banner up, and we're going to get into this, friends. One moment here. Let me get that. This is fair use. We're educating the public. This is a transformative work, and it's covered under fair use. Let's get into it, friends. So this is a former CIA agent, John Stockwell, and he talks about how the CIA worked in Vietnam and elsewhere.
Let's talk about the function of the CIA. I think a lot of us have an impression that all the CIA does is gather intelligence. Intelligence is information, of course. Now,
yeah, that's a misconception.
If you obtained information that was based upon fact, and if that is so, what did you do with it?
Well, one of the four principal functions of the CIA is to gather intelligence and ideally forward it to the president, the users of information, the policymakers, as they say.
Now, we have heard about some of these intelligence assets who have infiltrated the UFO community today, keeping dossiers on different people in the UFO community, gathering dirt and information that can be used against them for whatever purpose, keeping track of people, finding out where they live, and more. Sounds like information gathering, doesn't it?
There are other functions, however, some of them more legitimate than others. One is to run secret wars, the covert action that's written and talked about so much, like what's happening in Nicaragua today from Honduras. Another thing is to disseminate propaganda to influence people's minds.
Disseminate propaganda to influence people's minds. If you look at the current infiltration of intelligence assets into the UFO community, you'll notice something, at least I have. None of their information turns out to be good. It's all garbage, and they promise evidence, they never provide it, but they make fantastical claims, and I think that this is intentional. A purposeful spreading of fake information so that we don't spend our time on real and valid cases, information, and research. Instead, we're lost in the glow of this propaganda machine.
And this is a major function of the CIA. And unfortunately, of course, it overlaps into the gathering of information. You have contact with a journalist. You will give him true stories. You'll get information from him. You'll also give him false stories.
You do.
Stop for a moment. How many times have we heard a so-called journalist that was getting his information from a intelligence asset? How many articles have been written about former government people and intelligence assets talking about UFOs? How many, podcasts, documentaries, television shows, news appearances have journalists made where their sources for the information they're sharing is actually United States government intelligence assets or former intelligence assets? Now, remember that multiple people formerly of the CIA are on record that's what they do. They give false stories to journalists. Maybe they'll give them a true story once in a while to keep them on the hook. But most of what they feed them is, garbage. And so are we all, since the intelligence agents in the UFO community have really taken up all the air in the room here and getting all the attention and media coverage and, shaping the discourse and the discussions that people are having, this makes no sense to me. They're here and they are spreading largely false information. And they are also using journalists, feeding them false stories. And it's this weird, endless loop. This is one of the functions of intelligence assets, to spread false information through media. And we can clearly see that has happened in the UFO community many, many times.
Buy his confidence with true stories?
You buy his confidence and set him up. We've seen this happen recently with Jack Anderson, for example, who has his intelligence sources, and he has also admitted that he's been set up by them. Every fifth story just simply being false. You also work on their human vulnerabilities to recruit them in a classic sense, to make them your agent. So
we have heard about some of the UFO shady bunch recruiting people, right? Oh, you're going to be a hero of disclosure. It's a cult-like tactic, but it works. And just as this person, John Stockwell, is discussing, they prey on people's vulnerabilities. If they have a big ego, they feed it. If they need something, they get it for them. It's a very manipulative process.
That you can control what they do, so you don't have to set them up sort of, by putting one over on them. So you can say, here, plant this one next Tuesday.
Can you do this with responsible reporters?
Yes, the Church Committee brought it out in 1975, and then Woodward and Bernstein put an article in Rolling Stone a couple of years later. 400 journalists cooperating with the CIA, including some of the biggest names in the business.
So our media would appear to be just a secondary arm of the Central Intelligence Agency. That's not really news to me, but it may be news to some of you. And remember, that number, 400 reporters or journalists or, TV personalities, that's from 1975. Do you think they've upped the ante and have maybe a few more assets in the field? I think so. I definitely think so. So I wanted to give you some historical background then into psychological operations, and we can compare that to how we can compare that to what we have seen in the UFO community, and attempt to shape the narrative, and attempt to, I keep saying this, and this makes a lot of sense. If you take all these intelligence people out of the UFO community, what do we got left? Not much. It would take half of everything talked about. It would take half of all the stories. It would take half of everything out of the UFO world. Does that mean that half of this is just being injected by intelligence assets? It appears that way to me. It gets crazier and crazier. But I wanted to talk about this film, The Aviary. This person, Digital Vortex, did a great job. And in fact, I'm going to do it right now before I forget. I'm going to go over and put it in the description of the video. You'll pardon me. I'm a terrible show host. Always race. Some days I'm racing to get ready for showtime. And this was one of those days, friends. I don't know about the rest of you, but if you have children, you're kind of already looking forward to the summer being over. I'm going to just label it free documentary. It's on YouTube. I highly recommend it. And we're going to we'll have a watch party of sorts for a little while. And I'll talk about some of the, information being presented in this. So I've saved the video. It's in the description now. I highly recommend this. From a historical perspective, this is great because it really breaks down what I've been saying, which is all of this has happened before. A lot of people think that TTSA was the first time a bunch of intelligence agents or government agents came and promised disclosure. The first time was something called the Aviary, and Richard Doty was a part of that. And Bill Moore, who was once probably the most famous UFO researcher, he was involved and manipulated directly. It is a crazy story of how a group of intelligence assets or former intelligence assets, former government agents, all got together and ran control of all the information in the UFO community for quite some time. And not only did they do that, they spied on people in the UFO community. They got some people in their trust, sharing fake documents. Some say real documents. I don't believe it. It is an incredible story of the predecessor to TTSA. And when TTSA came along, we've got the 2.0 version, in my opinion, of the Aviary. Same story. A bunch of former government agents. They've had it with that evil government, and they're going to bring us disclosure. Well, that's exactly what the Aviary was supposed to be. And by the way, the Aviary, they all had bird names like Eagle and Falcon. It was all very cloak and dagger. I don't know what it is with UFO people. They love the cloak and dagger bit, the X-Files influence maybe, but this is pre-X-Files. They all had code names of birds, and Condor was one. And interestingly, in a pre-internet era, there was FidoNet message boards, and one of them was like UFOs and aliens. It was a lot like our modern, UFOs on Reddit, but very primitive. And so you'd wait 3 days, you'd type something out, you'd wait 3 days for other people to reply to you. But they shared text files in that pre-internet network, and you could get text files like from the different members of the Aviary and what information about UFOs and aliens they were sharing. But they were like shadowy, anonymous. Often, most of them were anonymous. Later, some of them were identified. It's just a great story of TTSA happening before. Total manipulation of all the information in the UFO world, total manipulation of the UFO community, spying on people, manipulating people, trying to gain people's loyalty so they do what you want. And now we've talked about this. All this has happened before. It will all happen again. Now, what we really have going on is the Aviary 3.0, because now we've got a new whistleblower, right? Oh, and there's going to be 40 more. It's a lot like the Aviary, and in my view, a purposeful attempt to, control the narratives here. Very troubled by all that, and troubled by the fact that, I get it, a lot of people got interested in this stuff in 2016 or later. They don't know the history. I was here for this Aviary thing and UFO Cover Up Live and the whole thing. That's why I didn't buy TTSA when TTSA came along. Like, oh, this sounds a little too familiar to me. And familiar it was. And now I think we just have a reworking of the TTSA crew, right? And they're all out. It's so funny. Everybody connected directly to David Grush. There's so many people connected to him that have for-profit UFO businesses, right? So this isn't about money at all, right? The guy had a documentary deal before he ever became a public figure. It was already in place, according to our reporting, as of May 15th, before he went public. He had a documentary deal. Is this all money grabs? But why are there so many intelligence people involved in these money grabs? And is all this legal? I mean, I don't know. I don't get it. Seems to be an awful lot of shady stuff going on, but the shadiness didn't begin here, friends. So there's this new documentary. I thoroughly enjoyed this. I think he did a great job. A YouTube channel named Digital Vortex. And by the way, we're going to invite him to have a talk with us about this whole thing. But I thought tonight we'll just sort of preview the video, and I'll bring him here another night. Again, I ran out the clock today. Some of you know my children are home with me all summer long, 2 of them. And I have my hands full just trying to shovel enough snacks at them and keep them busy and not killing each other. 2 boys. Yeah, so let's get into this. I highly recommend this. We're gonna sample this and talk about it.
Myth. This is the disturbing true story of the Aviary. The subject of ufology is a convoluted, densely packed topic with multiple subjects all vying for their own peculiar brand of attention. It becomes almost impossible to penetrate and discern any semblance of reality from this subject.
Well, that I will agree with. It seems to me like the deeper you go down the rabbit hole, the stranger things get, right?
And this, as it turns out, is entirely the point.
I agree.
Unless you know exactly what to look for. To try and make sense of historical UFO stories, testimony, blurry videos, and a distinct lack of any viable public evidence for the existence of alien life visiting our planet, despite an abundance of extraordinary unsubstantiated claims, then we need to delve into the history of UFOs and see.
By the way, I'm pretty sure that Linda Moulton Howe killed that cow. She hit it in the head with a shovel. Just putting that out there, an alternate theory. She needed a story to sell. She hit that cow in the head with a shovel, right? I think so.
If the echoes of the past are informing our present. Let's not begin with Roswell or Project Blue Book or even Kenneth Arnold, but where officialdom first systematically began covertly and overtly infiltrating the UFO community.
All of this has happened before, friends, and it will all happen again. And it was interesting for me to see, when TTSA came along, some of the other UFO people that were already here, like Richard Dolan and George Knapp and other people that I would expect to be somewhat, cautious or critical about a bunch of government agents coming in and saying they're going to bring us. They all jumped on the bandwagon. There was going to be book deals and documentaries. We're all going to make more money. Great. Let's jump on the intelligence PSYOP bandwagon, right? It was amazing to see how many people jumped right in with TTSA, even though it was all intelligence people saying they're going to bring disclosure. Come on. But this happened before. because the aviary people cozied up to the big shots in the world of UFOs when they did their PSYOP. It was just interesting to see that, history repeats. And now what do we see? A lot of people jumping right on this whole Dave Grush thing, which to me is the Aviary 3.0 or TTSA 2.0, Elizondo 2.0. A lot of people in the UFO world just jumping right on it, right? Not being very critical or discerning or, waiting for evidence before jumping right in with them. There's a benefit. There's a reason these intelligence operatives are so successful. They give people what they want. They appeal to their ego, their wallets, and they're able to control people. These are weak-minded, silly people to me who don't see through something like this, but it is what it is. Let's continue with this.
Which to this day leaves an undeniable cultural legacy of deceit and fraud.
I would agree.
Let's begin with the counterintelligence operation that would lead to the complete mental and physical breakdown of a man who would ultimately take his own life because of the information the United States government were providing to him.
Yes. The United States government fed this man, Paul Benowitz, fake information about aliens for a long period of time. Many people believe that what he was actually seeing was early drone tests. This would have been the later portion of the 1980s. So nobody even really knew what drones were at that point. I mean, sure, there's always been remote piloted aircraft, but these were like drones being developed, top secret stuff at the Air Force Base near where Paul Benowitz lived. So the United States government sent agents to convince him that what he was seeing flying in the skies wasn't top secret technology, but rather alien spacecraft.
Let's begin with Paul Benowitz.
We have an unidentified fluoride object.
Yeah, unidentified. Yeah, this is very well edited and done, I think. Especially for an independent film. Pick some interesting footage for this montage.
The story of Paul Benowitz is the origin of modern ufology and the key to understanding what is transpiring today, only on a much grander public scale. It began with audio engineer and electronic expert Paul Benowitz in the late 1970s, who lived in the shadow of Kirkland
this
Air
is a
Force
really
Base
sad
in
story.
Albuquerque, New Mexico.
He was a patriot, yeah.
Paul intercepted an odd signal emanating from the base and decided to confront Kirkland's military officials with his unusual data. This unlocked a sequence of events that would ultimately lead to Paul's demise. What began as a novel approach by the OSI unit located at Kirkland,
Yeah,
which
subscribe
had
to his
recently been
channel.
established in 1979, would become a
Did a great
legacy of
job on
tactical
this.
deceit. Paul Benowitz, amongst others, would be used as a means of sowing disinformation directly into the UFO community. And UFOs would be used as a cover for the aerospace industry, with the seemingly elusive stamp of officialdom
Yeah, I agree.
convincing generations of a convenient lie by interweaving themselves directly into UFO lore.
Heads and very oval-shaped eyes, very narrow nose, slit for mouth, slits for ears, no hair on the head, kind of a bulb-shaped head.
wouldn't require much effort because, as most people come to
Yeah, and this film directly references that UFO cover-up live where Richard Doty appeared in shadow with a voice disguiser and another intelligence asset as well. They were both manipulating the UFO community for some time.
understand through their own experience. Governments lie all the time for reasons that may never be officially revealed. And even if they are, the people involved in those operations are always long since gone, and accountability is no longer possible. See the Tuskegee experiments, MK Ultra, radiation experimentation on unwitting soldiers, Agent Orange, the Gulf of Tonkin. The list is endless. So it should come as no surprise people generally share a mistrust of their government.
Yeah, and these are things that we discussed earlier in the presentation. The United States government does some wacky, evil stuff in secret. And I, for one, am against all of that. If you're going to experiment on people, it's horrific.
Because some conspiracies are genuinely real. The term conspiracy theorist was first coined by CIA operatives as a means of discrediting people involved in the public inquiry
Kennedy
into
assassination.
JFK's assassination. Yep. Enter Richard Doty, the OSI operative charged with convincing Paul Benowitz that the signals that he had intercepted emanating from Kirkland were actually communications from aliens who were secretly working with government officials at the base.
Yeah, and if you ever saw the film Mirage Men, this is a lot like that. I think this Digital Vortex did a great job on this and tying all the threads together. There's a lot of threads here in this whole story. Of course, it begins with the manipulation of Paul Benowitz and him literally going insane from the amount of propaganda they were filling his head with. Remember as well that so much UFO lore came from that Paul Benowitz case, the Dulce, New Mexico base, pumping Paul Benowitz's head full of fake stories about aliens, UFOs, secret bases, alien visitation.
Doty would go on to provide an active member in the UFO community named Bill Moore, himself an avid ufologist and the co-author of the first book on Roswell, called The Roswell Incident. Bill Moore is also believed to have assisted in the breaking and entering of Paul's home. Richard Doty tasked Bill Moore with providing information to Paul Benowitz, and would later publicly admit to a stunned audience at MUFON of his involvement in a coordinated psychological campaign against him.
Yeah, and this is that famous time that he appeared at I think it was a national UFO convention, and sort of fessed up that he'd been working with government agents and doing this and that. He got booed off the stage.
To the best of my knowledge, it was all disinformation. And I was the unfortunate one who had unwittingly supplied the fuel to those who were spreading the fire. I've held my silence on this matter for more than 6 years. Now you know the truth. Disinformation is a strange and bizarre game. Those who play it are completely aware that an operation's success is dependent upon dropping information upon a target or mark in such a way that the person will accept it as truth and will repeat and even defend it to others as if it were true.
And here we see, how some of these disinformation campaigns operate. And one of the things that this made me think about is all the UFO circle jerkers. They're unwitting marks. They just sit there and let people tell their lies, and then they'll even defend that person's lies with no evidence. They are, being played fools of, these people without discernment, these people without hard questions or, the ability to critically analyze the claims being made and challenge the guests. These intelligence assets are excellent at finding dupes. Remember, Lou Elizondo went on how many podcasts? All of them were willing to just repeat his lies, right? And let him sit there unchallenged. All of them were marks. Congratulations, UFO circle jerkers. You all got played.
Once this has been accomplished, We certainly have a number of rude people in this audience. That's too bad. Once this has been accomplished, the work of the counterintelligence specialist is complete. They can simply withdraw in the confidence that the dirty work of spreading their poison seeds will be done by others. Those who want proof of how well the process works need only look around you.
Yeah, and this is the same thing we see with John Ramirez or Anjali. I watched in horror as a whole panel of marks sat there and let Anjali, former Defense Intelligence Agency information warfare specialist, and John Ramirez, former CIA, just sit there and lie about aliens. And nobody challenged them, right? It's just, it's shocking to see how weak-willed and weak-minded some of these people are. To fall for it so quickly. Is the desire for it to be true so strong that people are just willing to throw away all discernment and all critical thinking? It looks that way to me sometimes.
Every time one of you repeats an unverified or unsubstantiated bit of information without qualifying it as such, you are contributing to that process. And every time you do it, somebody in a need-to-know position sits back and has a horse laugh at your expense.
Yeah, he pretty much got booed off the stage from what I was told.
Frankly, I'm a little ashamed of some people in this audience, regardless of what you believe, what you hear, or not.
Yes, Patty, they want to
this
believe.
was the immediate
Yes.
end of Bill Moore's career.
Yep. And
it turned out that what disturbed officials at Kirkland wasn't that Paul Benowitz had uncovered a clandestine operation between humanity and an outside alien force, but the signals that Paul Benowitz had intercepted were actually part of a highly sensitive project being conducted at Kirkland at the time. And this information was just too sensitive to be out in the open. Effectively, Paul Benowitz was conducting an espionage campaign and spying on a government facility with advanced audio radio equipment that he had access to.
Yeah, he was a tech guy, so they couldn't hide what they were doing from him. And interestingly, in the case of Bill Moore, after that event happened where he publicly admitted that he had been spying on members of the UFO community and providing information to government agents, and he was getting information from government agents and spreading it, and it all turned out to be fake information, false information, disinformation, misinformation. Bill Moore essentially, who, by the way, he was, the big shot at the time. He was the UFO guy at the time. He just literally disappeared. The last that I heard, Bill Moore was working at a public high school in Pennsylvania. And by the way, I live in Pennsylvania. Once I really tried hard to find him and contact him because I would like to hear his perspective after this time. But I haven't been able to. If anybody knows where I can contact him, please let me know at truthseekershow@gmail.com.
During this period, Paul Benowitz was monitored, provided with fraudulent documentation on Majestic 12. His computer was replaced by the government and would spit out literal gibberish that he was told were secret readouts of distant communication between aliens and Kirkland Air Force Base. And he
Yeah, so they were telling him it was aliens when it may have been a secret communications project for the military, or most likely it was a secret communications project for the military. But the signals he was picking up, they didn't want him picking up, so suddenly they come up with this plan to tell him it was alien messages and alien communications.
He was even flown in a private plane in the middle of nowhere in Dulce, New Mexico, where he was informed an alien base was operating, complete with carefully laid props on the ground that he was encouraged to take pictures of as they flew over.
Quite a psychological operation to run on an American citizen, isn't it? Shocking. Yeah, he later made diagrams.
In fact, every story you have ever heard about Dulce underground alien bases and exchange programs between humanity and aliens is directly derived from the psychological campaign conducted against Paul Benowitz.
Yeah, the Serpo story, that's Richard Doty. Dulce, New Mexico, that's Richard Doty. Many people say the MJ-12 documents, that's Richard Doty. That's an awful lot of UFO information that all came from a government disinformation agent. And how many times have we seen some of these UFO circle jerkers that don't know their history or don't do any research do a show on Dulce, New Mexico underground alien base as if it really is real? It came from a known paid government disinformation agent. It was part of a disinformation campaign, as was the MJ-12 documents, as was the Serpo story. And by the way, the Serpo story was directly tied to Richard Doty through IP numbers. They caught him sending that information from a computer that he had used previously as himself. Then suddenly, a mysterious anonymous person starts sending these emails with this information about an alien exchange program. Again, all disinformation. So much UFO mythology comes from Richard Doty. And it's interesting to see that Richard Doty's still around. And in fact, on Gaia TV, you can hear him talk all about how reptilian aliens are visiting and controlling humans, and it gets even crazier and more wild, but he's still out there creating UFO and alien stories decades after this. And let's be clear, that's an awful lot of UFO mythology, all traced back to one author in the form of Richard Doty, former Air Force Office of Special Investigations officer and admitted and known paid government disinformation agent. Incredible. And incredible that he's out there just welcomed into the UFO community. And to be clear, I interviewed him once myself before people started attacking me. I wanted to verify some information that I had come across. Richard Doty's family and him, several members of his family and him have all been involved in UFOs for the government. His father, his uncle, and him. And so when I interviewed him, I wanted to verify that this information that I got about that was accurate. And it was. So Richard Doty is literally a multi-generational UFO person for the United States government. Was his grandpop working on UFOs too in the 30s or the 20s? I don't know. I meant to ask him and forgot. But it's interesting that his family was so deeply ingrained. I'm not sure if it was his uncle or his father. I think his uncle worked on Project Blue Book for the United States government. He ran UFO and alien disinformation campaigns for the government. His father was also involved in investigating UFOs for the United States government. Pretty interesting. That's one family is so deeply involved, and then so much UFO mythology all comes from Richard Doty. So many UFO stories, Dulce, New Mexico, the alien exchange program, a lot of information about Area 51 and aliens on Area 51. Doty is a fountain of information, but is it disinformation? Is it misinformation? Is it false? Is it fake information? Well, he hasn't proven any of the information is true in decades, so I'm guessing, yes, it's all fake. And why is one guy dedicating such a chunk of his life to injecting so much fake information into the world of UFOs and aliens?
Paul's mind began to unravel. He became noticeably paranoid and reclusive. He believed everything that was being fed to him. And why wouldn't he? He now believed that he was being brought into the fold of a secret operation, an operation which involved what may be the precursor to a full-scale alien invasion. And all of this information was coming directly, albeit covertly, from officials at Kirkland Air Force Base. Little did Paul Benowitz know that what he was being brought into was indeed a real covert operation, but
an
that
operation
the operation
against him.
revolved directly around him.
Yeah, an operation against
What
him.
was actually transpiring was a systematic campaign to disinform, disarm, and to maintain control of the sensitive signal data that he had uncovered. His willingness to believe in the extraordinary was directly exploited and used against him. Paul Benowitz would eventually commit suicide, living in a concocted fantasy world that he was systematically convinced to pursue, using cruel lies and operational tradecraft by an uncaring government eager to keep their tactical advantage over the Soviet Union during the Cold War.
Yeah, so unfortunately, Mr. Benowitz was a casualty of an information warfare operation, a disinformation operation, a psychological operation. And let's just review what they did to this guy. They staged an alien base, took him on an airplane ride, told him where the aliens were landing and where their base was. Take some pictures, Paul. They literally drove this man crazy with false information. They replaced his computer with another one. They broke in his house several times. And by the way, there were multiple agencies apparently involved in this disinformation campaign, not just the Air Force Office of Special Investigations.
This is the legacy of modern ufology, and the same people responsible for it are mingling throughout the UFO community to this day.
Yeah.
Spinning the same tired stories to convince new generations of the validity of the US government's involvement with alien technology.
Yeah, and isn't it? It's true. Yeah, all these people are spinning and respinning the same tired old stories. They weren't true the first time, but let's tell the story again, make a new documentary, make a new book about it. And interesting, I'm sure that Mr. Doty, besides working for Gaia TV, the biggest garbage peddler of disinformation and fake information about UFOs, aliens, and everything else, I'm certain that he still works UFO conventions now. He gives, and gets those public speaking fees. Great. And he's also paid to be in some documentaries that I'm aware of. Or been paid, I should say. But all this connects into what's happening right now. And there's direct threads and a lot of similarities between the TTSA PSYOP and this aviary PSYOP. And this film kind of sheds light on that. So we wanted to highlight it here.
The problem with the truth is that some people lie for reasons which make no rational sense, even in the minds of those telling their lies. And this, unfortunately, is a fact. Ask any police officer who has had to deal with deceptive people every day. They'd be happy to inform you just how deceitful people can be, especially
I agree with that.
Them attention, an escape from mundane reality, and the ability to be accepted by people willing to believe their deceit. Wanting to believe a subject doesn't necessarily mean that you should. People who wrap themselves up in the subject matter form their identities in it. And feel
yeah, it's kind of true, Now you're the UFO guy. You're crazy Uncle Joe, right? I'm crazy Uncle Joe.
You're validated by those genuinely seeking answers to questions we all have. Are we really alone? Now throw historical deception of counterintelligence operatives into this mix, and the current ability to become a celebrity in your own cultural group by parroting repetitive stories which just so happen to be highly lucrative due to the widespread appeal of those interested in the possibility of alien contact.
Yeah, so a lot of money to be made, and you too can be UFO famous, which is kind of a joke, right? Because I always thought UFO famous was worse than internet famous. Like, how many people, if you stopped them on the street, would know who Jeremy Corbell is, or who George Knapp, or who Lou Elizondo is, or who Nick Pope is? Nobody. But somehow they're put on some kind of pedestal here, like they're special, like they're celebrities. I jokingly use that term UFO celebrity because they're no celebrities. Come on. Well, I guess, some of the people on Ancient Aliens may have an argument that they're a D-level celebrity, like the hair guy from Ancient Aliens, like people would recognize him. probably, but not many others.
Many ufologists dedicate their lives to this subject, portray themselves as secretive insiders, routinely withhold information, and form their own social cliques, which ironically operate much like a shadowy cabal. And they actively mingle with the very counterintelligence operatives exploiting their beliefs, which goes hand in hand with earning money directly out of you.
Yeah, so the UFO storytellers are directly involved with these intelligence assets that are pumping the whole community full of fake stories. Sorry, this is kind of a somber episode here, but this is the reality of what's actually taken place in the past, is taking place right now, and will likely continue to be taking place here.
Easy to admit to yourself, never mind others, that you have been duped. And if you spend a lifetime falling down a rabbit hole leading nowhere, even if you realize it, the odds are you wouldn't leave it, because your life has become so intimately entwined in it that it doesn't pay to confront reality. Instead, it's easier to viciously attack those who point out the irrationality, and then offer up those dissenters as proof of a conspiracy against them.
Yeah, this is exactly what we're seeing right now. Isn't it great that so many people in the UFO world wanted serious research done into this phenomenon? They all wanted serious scientific, inquiry. They wanted serious investigation. And then when they get it and they don't like the outcome or answers being given to them by these serious scientists, researchers, and investigators that are seriously, studying the phenomenon, they turn on them, and suddenly they're part of the cover-up,
while simultaneously profiting from it. If you have spent any time in the UFO community, you will know this to be especially true, because you see it all the time. Nobody ever wants to be talked down to, and that is certainly not my intention. Think about how you personally got interested in UFOs. Did you see something in the sky you couldn't explain, read a book or watch a documentary that fascinated you? Or was it some sort of personal trauma and a willingness to accept a more interesting reality in place of the cruel reality which we are all forced to live in? Either way, it's entirely human to question and to search for patterns in the chaos. People usually take interest in the subject of UFOs at an early age. Minds are lit on fire by outlandish books and documentaries offering extraordinary claims, but never any actual evidence.
Yeah, isn't that the downer? Like, lots of stories, very little evidence.
And that's the key. The evidence just isn't there. And it never was. Despite claims, countless books, documentaries, and podcasts, today we are exactly where ufology was in 1947.
That's exactly right. There was no evidence in 1947. It's 2023. There's still no evidence. And when I say evidence, I really am talking about a smoking gun. Like, if you're going to really convince people that this stuff is all real, you need a smoking gun level of evidence. We just haven't seen it since 1947.
Nowhere. Albeit with far more stories, more sensationalism, and an increasing presence by those with official agendas to either exploit beliefs for tactical advantage or for profiteers to generate revenue out of you. So let's now look at how the history of counterintelligence operations in ufology play into the modern UFO landscape. We'll begin with the origin of the aviary.
Yeah, I agree, Amy Collins. I think that you're absolutely correct. Yeah, and now we're going to get a perspective of the history of this first attempt,
UFO
the
believers
aviary.
Proliferating disinformation did not begin with Bill Moore or Paul Benowitz. It really
Testimony's
began a few
evidence,
years
yeah.
earlier in the mid-1970s during the mainstream re-emergence of science fiction, when the topic of aliens once again impacted popular culture after the heyday of the 1950s, with the likes of the Roswell conspiracy re-emerging into public light.
That's kind of true. It's an escape, Jeremo, 72.
Producer on a local radio show to look into the story. Betty and Barney Hill, and of course Star Wars, Alien, and Close Encounters of the Third Kind became smash hits at the worldwide box office.
Yeah, everybody loved
Meanwhile,
aliens.
cattle mutilations and alien abductions became popular new additions to UFO mythology. It was during this time official interest in convincing the public in the validity of UFOs truly began.
A lot of people
It
believe
begins
that.
with a
Noble.
documentary titled UFOs Past, Present and Future, later retitled and re-edited as UFOs It Has Begun. A documentary utilizing the first official collaborative involvement of the United States government. The first and only time it ever happened. A documentary the CIA was systematically involved in
I'm
having
sorry to hear
produced,
that.
with literal
Give me my
spooks used as
prayers.
go-betweens for the producers and officials providing the testimony and visual evidence. Snippets of indistinct grainy UFO footage would be provided to the production from official sources. Unsubstantiated claims of a UFO landing at Holloman Air
I
Force
agree,
Base
Red
would be
Cap.
made.
Yep.
Reams of footage of which was promised but never actually materialized. More on that later.
Yeah, and that would be the famous Holloman case. And I just want to mention, somebody mentioned being demonetized instantly for things that go against certain narratives. We've been experiencing this. This video is. Oh, wait a minute. Here, let me go over to my live. Already, this video has already been demonetized. Now, I believe in the beginning I gave a pretty professional presentation there. We're not cursing. Demonetized already. And now we're 9 minutes into the broadcast. We may be at 1 minute into the broadcast. I didn't check at 1 minute in, but it seems like many of our videos are just demonetized before, at least give us an opportunity to not, what are we violating here? I don't know. They just keep doing this to us. And then what happens is they review it. It takes 5 days, 3 to 5 days, and then they turn it on. But by then, all the views are finished because this is a live show. So it's a terrible situation here, but we're working through it.
And testimony would help fill in the considerable voids in the stories. Is any of this starting to sound familiar? It should, because it's exactly the same counterintelligence playbook in operation today.
It's exactly what they're doing
What makes
today.
this particular documentary so fascinating and a cornerstone in UFO lore is it helps to unravel the actual mystery and the methodology behind those pushing the narrative. Not because of what it contains. The information provided is practically useless, but how counterintelligence agents went about manipulating the production of the documentary.
Yeah, there are counterintelligence agencies actively manipulating people that are making documentaries to get certain information out to the public that they want out.
And the deceptive playbook that quickly followed in its wake is more disturbing than any concocted alien narrative, culminating in a shadowy group coining themselves the Aviary that
Here we have it.
systematically infiltrated and deceived the entire UFO community.
A group of intelligence agents and assets that systematically infiltrated the UFO community and spread fake information. Does that sound familiar to anybody else? Sounds awfully familiar to me. Oh, that's right, TTSA. It's the predecessor to TTSA, my friends, and it's right here. And make no mistake about it, I think this Grush thing is the 3.0 version of this.
And it still operates to this day, albeit in a far more effective and manipulative mainstream form.
Our group is euphemistically called the Aviary, and each individual uses a code name of a bird as an identifier. We will continue
I agree, Red
to
Cap.
provide the UFO community with data, and we will continue to proceed.
No, we have a filter here, Randy. Couldn't be that.
In 1973, Robert Emenegger and Alan Sandler, two well-connected LA TV producers of documentaries, music videos, and ads with extensive connections to intelligence agencies, were invited to Norton Air Force Base in California
Yeah,
to
flew
discuss
him out.
proposals for a feature film documentary on a number of subjects proposed by the military. One proposal was on advanced military projects in neural control being developed by the Air Force. The other was on UFOs, a subject which neither of them
That's
had any
interesting,
interest
Trolly
in,
Troll.
but the Air Force claimed to be interested in freely cooperating and sharing information on
What
the
bird would you
subject
pick?
for the first and only
I'd
time
probably
in its
pick
long
eagle or
deeply checkered
falcon.
history.
I don't know.
But what really sealed the deal and got production cameras rolling was the
No,
insistence
we have
that they were
filters
in the
here. Can't do
possession
that.
of over 14,000 feet of extraordinary footage taken from multiple vantage
I don't
points
know. I've never
of
heard of
UFO
that.
landing in
And I
May
try not to
of
do that until 20 minutes
1971.
in, you know.
What if I told you that a UFO landed at Holloman Air Force Base and it was all caught on film?
Yeah, so this is interesting.
Production.
So intelligence assets in the military go to these filmmakers and they say, what if we tell you that an alien spacecraft landed on Holloman Air Force Base and we have video of it? And we're going to give you that video for your documentary. Incredible.
Began in earnest. Sandler and Emenegger would travel to Holloman Air Force Base, speak with officials, and freely walked amongst the base speaking with its inhabitants, seeking corroboration of something inexplicable having happened a few years previous, with flippant remarks confirming a glowing object seemingly having landed on one of the base's runways. During this time, Paul Shartle, the military liaison between producers and officials, started providing footage, official witnesses, testimony from Air Force personnel, all of which was unimpressive and inconsequential.
Yeah, but they fed these filmmakers all of this information. Why?
And entirely unrelated to the supposed Holloman Air Force Base UFO landing. As
You give them a bunch of
progressed on
fluff
the
instead of
documentary,
evidence of
Emenegger
the
and
major
Sandler kept
claims.
pressing the Holloman footage with Shartle, but after multiple assurances and back and forths, it still hadn't materialized, much to their continued frustration. To help make a bit more sense of this, let's move a little further ahead in time to October the 15th, 1988.
Yeah, the CIA UFO broadcast. That would be UFO Cover Up Live. Pretty interesting.
Next, two people who have survived a close encounter with a UFO but suffered dire consequences. Stay with us.
It's UFO Cover Up Live. If you've never seen this, you're missing out. This was early UFO aliens at Area 51, all kinds of stuff.
Paul Shartle, the intelligence liaison for UFOs past, present, and future, would later appear in a live 1988 broadcast, imaginatively titled UFO Cover-Up Live, an entirely scripted and awkward event in a long-since-forgotten live TV broadcast that was once again used to dangle the elusive carrot that was the Holloman Air Force Base UFO landing footage and bring together a whole slew of notable characters from throughout the UFO community, as well as what
No,
this
I don't think it
broadcast
is,
was really
but
intended
maybe.
for.
Yeah, he does sound a little like him.
Counterintelligence operatives who would use this much publicized platform
Yeah, hit
to
that
enact
like
the
button.
first public trial of their psychological operation on viewers at home. What followed was a mixture of true believers and UFO researchers mingled with shrewd, calculating counterintelligence agents, and in certain cases, those working both sides.
Yeah, so this live television event, it mixed government intelligence disinformation agents and willing participants from the UFO community, right? And, oh, I'm going to get on TV. This is a spotlight. Maybe they got paid. Interesting.
Like Bill Moore, who was also present alongside Stanton Friedman to discuss the Roswell case.
Questions
Paul
are
Shartle
weapons
would
to
also
them.
appear in this broadcast,
Yeah.
alongside Robert Emenegger, claiming that he'd seen 16mm footage of the Holloman UFO landing incident in 1971.
I saw footage of 3 disc-shaped crafts. One of the craft landed and 2 of them went away.
Why did it land?
It appeared to be in trouble because it oscillated all the way down to the ground. However, it did land on 3 pods.
This live broadcast is both notable and notorious due to
I agree,
it
Mike.
involving members of the intelligence world, all of which was supposedly coming forward for the first time.
Sound familiar too. This person said, well, I saw the film. Can we see the film? Well, no, that's top secret. But I saw it, and it showed 3 disc-shaped flying saucer UFO craft landing, you know, like a lot like the claims of today. Well, people told me, you know.
To publicly discuss their knowledge of UFOs. In anonymous silhouette, of course. I dug up this rare live recording in its entirety. And while the broadcast was indeed live, let's remember, the entire event had been pre-scripted, and all of the guests featured were told to stick directly to that script. To the distaste of some
very
participants.
scripted for a live event.
That was observed was a alien craft piloted by military.
Video
Does he
segments
sound
were used
familiar?
to portray the mysterious
That's
aviary
Richard Doty.
whistleblowers, like Falcon, and Condor, both secretly OSI agents mingling in the UFO community and spreading
Both from Air Force
disinformation.
Office of Special Investigations.
Let's take a look.
Disinformation
Bill,
agents.
tell us how you first got involved.
I got a phone call after appearing on a radio show from a man who said,
Listen to how
"You're
they
the
appeal to
only
his
person we've
ego.
heard talk about this subject who seems to know what he's talking about." He convinced me that he was a government intelligence agent and wanted to begin disseminating some information about UFOs to the public.
The man Bill is referring to is Falcon, whom we've seen in shadow to protect his identity.
Yeah,
Right.
Richard Doty.
J-12 functions as a policy-making group relating to extraterrestrial activities and contacts
This is Richard
and
Doty.
UFO activities within the United States. They make the policy, obtain presidential approval, and then field activities implement the policies.
This
He
was the
should have been
first
named
time that the
Buzzard. Yeah.
aviary had made its public debut, and Richard Doty was one of the aviary members in the shadows amongst this live broadcast,
Yep.
going under the pseudonym Falcon.
Hal Putoff. I'm a physicist. I'm also
I
director
don't
of the
think it's
Institute
real.
for Advanced Studies at Austin.
Hal Putoff, another elusive aviary member believed to be OWL, and also indisputably associated with the CIA, who has been intimately involved for decades in pushing the UFO narrative, amongst others, who joined Tom DeLonge's To the Stars Academy, a UFO entertainment investor scam, where extraordinary promises were made to investors who they were seeking funding from.
Yeah, so isn't it great? Hal Putoff, who is directly tied to, well, indirectly tied to Mr. David Grush, the new UFO whistleblower. Yeah, that's interesting. He's part of the aviary. He was the OWL. Then he was part of the TTSA disinformation campaign. I don't know why people still listen to these people or hold them up on some kind of pedestal. These are not heroes. They're disinformation agents and UFO profiteering whores.
To actively develop and build real anti-gravity UFOs.
And build an exotic craft with an energy source that can revolutionize the world. Look very closely at these people, who they are.
This is the last
Take
season of
notice of where they
X-Files,
come
but not
from.
as cool, says
Think about the realities
Mickey
of what this team
Guillermo.
has the
Yeah.
ability to accomplish and deliver if we're fully equipped.
Obviously, no UFOs were ever built. This was also done alongside counterintelligence agent Lou Elizondo, who had recently left the government and moved straight into an investor scam.
Literally finished his career at the Department of Defense as senior intelligence officer in the
Yeah, I think he enjoyed it.
Office of the Secretary of Defense days ago. And now he is on the stage with us.
Who also claimed to be the head of an official UFO program at the Pentagon that turned out to never have had any official duties with the Pentagon and UFOs at all.
Yeah, isn't
Al
that
Putoff
great?
is also
Talk
involved
about
in many
disinformation.
anti-gravity investor schemes over the years. on
Here's
behalf
Hal
of the
Putoff.
CIA, Joe Firmiage being one, and remains alongside with Doty one of the central advocates of UFO counterintelligence misinformation.
Yeah, directly tied to
Many
Mr.
active
Grush.
counterintelligence
Well,
agents
indirectly.
currently operating today were actively involved in the 1988 UFO cover-up live broadcast in one capacity or another, albeit acting under pseudonyms and standing back in the shadows.
Yep.
Aviary members would each refer to themselves after specific types of birds as they trawled early UFO community message boards claiming extraordinary things.
Yes,
while
this is what I was
taking part
talking
in
about.
Shock TV documentaries, becoming covert sources for books, and generally hijacking the UFO community to sow their own brand of strategic disinformation.
Yeah, and so like I said, on early message boards, they were spreading text files, stories about UFOs and alien landings and alien crash retrievals and alien encounters. They were spreading an incredible amount of fake stories all throughout the UFO community. And they were pretty successful in taking over the narrative and controlling the flow of information.
Pseudonyms include the likes of Falcon, Eagle, Owl, Sparrow, Blue Jay, Seagull, Hawk, Condor, Raven, Pelican, and even Penguin. This went on for years, and as you'll soon come to learn, it never stopped.
No, they just dropped the aviary moniker and changed tactics. They got a Bobo in the form of Tom DeLonge to be a front man, you know? Pretty
I was out on the
interesting.
West Coast and reviewing things with my old partner, and he was much more open about allowing whoever to know a little bit behind the scenes. That's really what happened. And I surmised it myself, but I kept saying, wasn't the Air Force? Actually, it was instigated by our friends with the three initials.
CIA?
Mm-hmm. And they were
CIA.
They were involved all along, and I just should have put two and three together to come up with it. Because I remember meeting them; they were always over, and then we helped them with other projects.
Once production on UFOs Past, Present and Future neared conclusion, Robert Emenegger and Alan Sandler allegedly continued pressing Paul Shartle to provide the Holloman footage that they were promised.
Yeah, so they contact these filmmakers and say, make this film and we're going to give you this UFO footage that's genuine of aliens landing at Holloman. And they keep feeding them worthless information and witnesses for unrelated events. And they never come through with the footage, and eventually it reaches a boiling point.
And it got to such a point during production where there was nothing else that could be shot, as everything else that could have been covered was. So, without the Holloman footage, and with plans still in motion for it to be provided, they decided to begin tackling the penultimate segment of the documentary by returning back to Holloman Air Force Base and shooting insert shots of the base itself, the control tower, radars, fire engines scrambling on the runway,
they went and shot the
jets
B-roll.
taking off, and a helicopter hovering above Holloman's airfield, so the sequence could be cut together later in post, using dramatic reenactments that would be spliced together with the footage of the actual event. Once the Holloman footage was provided, but as you might expect, it never was. At least, not much of it. But we'll get to that in a moment.
Yeah, I think they ended up giving him a few seconds of film, which doesn't show or prove anything, and was recently debunked as a small aircraft landing.
The documentary,
in other words, an airplane landing off in the distance. The footage was very poor.
Was now complete, but the Holloman sequence was not. It was at this point that allegedly the Air Force began mysteriously requesting back all of the footage that had been provided, most of it being utterly inconsequential. And with that, cooperation with the official United States military sources all but ceased.
So that's bizarre in and of itself, because it was the military who contacted these filmmakers and wanted them to make this film, promised them full access, gave them some access, promised them this footage, and never came through with the footage. Then they started asking for footage that they gave them back.
The decision was then made that the sequence should be re-edited into a hypothetical scenario, which may have already happened, and in place of the actual footage, they would simply use cheap pastel drawings. The documentary was released to little fanfare and was quickly all but forgotten, until it was later re-edited for TV in the 1980s and titled UFOs It Has Begun, narrated and presented by Rod Serling.
Yeah, so they get Rod Serling, and that helps sell the film for television at least.
As the years passed, rumors continued to swirl of other UFO researchers being promised this mythical Holloman UFO footage. Linda Moulton Howe, a former reporter and famous UFO investigator,
of course, Linda got
responsible for bringing to popular attention cattle mutilations with a tendency for bending truth and disseminating outright UFO hoaxes, claimed that she was offered the same footage in the late 1980s, that once again never materialized from officials. And it was Richard Doty, amongst a few others at Kirtland, who were also responsible for this. The Holloman footage became a perpetual dangling carrot for many UFO researchers, suckered into the vicinity of officials with narratives to push. And it worked. The myth was born.
Yeah, they promised that footage to many, many different people that were prominent in the UFO community.
It took on a life entirely of its own, with people taking elements of this story and bending it to their own means. Decades later, in 2013, Robert Emenegger would re-emerge and tell his story, alongside a newly reformed Richard Doty, in the 2013 documentary Mirage Men.
Yeah, Mirage Men is a must-see. If you have never seen Mirage Men, I highly recommend it.
Doty, by this point, had rebranded himself as a private citizen, fighting for UFO truth, lamenting his sinister past and diminishing his role in driving Paul Benowitz to an early grave.
Yeah, so he wrote himself his own redemption arc.
Only now, in the interim between 1979 and 2013, Richard Doty had almost single-handedly become responsible for creating much of the UFO mythology between then and 2013. And by this point, was speaking at UFO conventions, on podcasts, and in TV shows spinning entirely new concocted fantasies, mingling the mundane truth with extraordinary fiction.
Yeah, interesting that a known paid government disinformation agent that drove him in crazy and to suicide gets a redemption arc. I'm not sure how I feel about that, but it is what it is. He became Mr. UFO convention for a long time.
Which, as any counterintelligence operative would tell you, is exactly how the lies are made plausible. If you've ever heard of Project Serpo, the alleged exchange between humans and extraterrestrials, which is eerily similar to Steven Spielberg's Close Encounters.
It's not eerily similar, it's the same story.
That was Richard Doty too. Moonlighting under different pseudonyms, all working towards the same goal, to create an incredible story. Robert Emenegger now amended his story too, seemingly confirming rumors that had been whispered about for decades that they actually did receive footage of the Holloman incident, and that 9 seconds of this footage was covertly edited into the Holloman sequence in the documentary Past, Present, and Future.
Yeah, so the government gave a whole 9 seconds of video that was supposed to be from the genuine video.
And here it is. This footage has been debated for years, and the history and baggage surrounding it makes it far more compelling than anything else in the documentary. And at face value, it does seem odd. The craft appears to be glowing, and, just as Paul Shartle said, it appears to be oscillating. Let's see what Paul Shartle said about the Holloman footage that he allegedly...
Yeah, and this was one of those hotly debated videos for years and years and years, but I think we get an answer about what this footage really is.
We saw in its entirety on UFO Cover-Up Live.
I saw footage of 3 disc-shaped crafts. One of the craft landed and 2 of them went away.
Why did it land?
It appeared to be in trouble because it oscillated all the way down to the ground. However, it did land on 3 pods. A sliding door opened, a ramp was extended, and out came 3 aliens.
What did they look like?
Well, they were human-sized. They had odd gray complexion and a pronounced nose. They wore tight-fitting jumpsuits, thin headdresses that appeared to be communication devices, and in their hands, they held a translator, I was told.
Yeah, he was told.
A Holloman base commander and other Air Force officers went out to meet him.
And you actually saw these aliens on the film?
Yes.
This film footage sounded very, very special, and we wanted to use it as the ending of our television special.
And did you? Was it in your special?
Well, although the Pentagon had been very, very cooperative all the way, at the last minute, the film was confiscated, and we lost the whole finale of our show. But what I saw and heard was enough to convince me that, the phenomenon of UFOs is real, very real.
So is it actually...
He meant the phenomenon of alien UFOs.
Classified footage of a UFO shot at Holloman Air Force Base in 1971? No. It's not classified footage, but it was shot at Holloman. It's actually an insert shot taken during the production of the documentary, of a plane, an F-4 Phantom to be exact, coming in for a landing with its high beam on. And this is indisputable.
Yeah. That, so much, the Holloman footage was bandied about as this going to be this holy grail. And that, if we just get that Holloman footage, it'll be the holy grail and prove alien visitation on Earth is real. And all of this stuff, it turns out it's a flying airplane with a spotlight on. Perspective is everything, I suppose. So there's another long-held myth of UFOs that is completely destroyed when you know what the object actually is. And let's take a moment to recognize all of that mythology built around this footage aliens landing, getting out with communication devices. They're talking to government officials, right? All of this mythology and stories built around this footage, and this footage was an F-4 Phantom plane with a spotlight on. Great. Another long-held belief of the UFO believer crowd comes crashing down like the house of cards it was built on, unfortunately. We want to thank Scott Nicholson for a kind and generous $1.99. My 4 a.m. dump means I get to see a new show live. Well, listen, I will never... I'm never going to complain about what got you here. If you got up, take a shit, and you're like, oh, Truthseekers is on. I had to take a dump. But while I do that, okay. Welcome, Scott Nicholson, and we're glad that you're here. And let me take a moment to thank you properly, because we have a new way to do that, courtesy of Mr. Ian and some of our wonderful AIs. Praise the cash, friends. Praise the cash.
Praise the cash. Praise the cash. Praise the cash. Praise the cash. Praise the cash. Praise the cash. Praise the cash. Praise the cash. Praise it.
Praise it. All right, and you know what? I realized too that I've been so engrossed in this this film and talking to you about it that I may have missed some. So let me just check in with that for a moment. If you're just joining us, friends, you're watching Truthseekers. We're giving you a special report on government psychological operations, disinformation, and the world of UFOs. Okay, we want to thank Bastard. Boy, what is that? Bastard and Cunt. Jeez. For kind and generous $3 Euro, who asked thoughts on Jack Sarfati and the alleged warp drive UFO. I think that Jack Sarfati is like Doty, a former intelligence person who just likes to mess with the UFO community. I don't think there's anything to a lot of what Sarfati says, though he appears very, very knowledgeable and seems convinced that he knows the secret to how these UFOs, if they're, advanced technology or alien, he knows the secret to how they work. I'm not a physicist, and I would need a translator. He's an interesting guy. Maybe we'll have him here, and we'll, explore that more fully. But thank you for helping us to praise the cash, and that'll get us all caught up on praising the cash for now. We'll continue with our presentation in a moment, but thanks all of you kind and generous benefactors, you Patreon supporters, and you channel members for helping us, and you people throwing a couple bucks in our hat with the super chats for helping us to praise the cash, friends.
Praise the cash. Praise the cash. Praise the cash. Yeah. Praise the cash. Praise the cash. Praise the cash. Yeah.
Praise it, friends. So it's interesting, this long-held belief that this Holloman footage was the real deal comes crashing down.
I need to stop for a second and explain something. I've been working on various aspects of this film and other productions for a long time, and I have been closely following the Holloman UFO case since before this millennium began, primarily due to the fascinating story of this footage. I always suspected it was not what was being presented, and went to great lengths to obtain information on it, speaking with radio show hosts who had the opportunity of speaking with Robert Emenegger, and speaking briefly with Robert Emenegger himself over a decade ago. This is a long story, and I may expand upon it one day. I indeed discovered that this footage was a lie, much in the same manner of how another filmmaker did, and this is what I need to address. On the 22nd of May 2023, YouTube user Here Suddenly released a video that absolutely crushed me, because it systematically laid out what I already knew, that the Holloman
footage was fake.
Was a lie.
It was all a lie.
Reprinting of UFOs past, present, and future that was remastered from an original negative, and in this particular scan, that shot was revealed to be nothing more than a plane. And I kept this to myself, quietly working away for a long time, hoping to be able to present it when life permitted. But in a cruel twist of fate, it just wasn't meant to be. And here suddenly, a truly apt name deserves all the credit for being diligent and prompt in his presentation. I lick my wounds and quietly subscribe to him. Good work.
Yeah, it's
The
nice that
capturing
multiple
story
people
of the
figured this
Holloman
out from the
UFO
new
landing
print of the film.
was an elaborate lie. And if this footage was a lie,
All
the
fake.
people telling us that it was genuine footage coming from the government are also lying. And not only that, but so too are those who made the documentary and also made these claims.
It's too bad we couldn't get that footage from the Air Force.
Yeah, all these people were
entire
lying about the
Holloman
footage.
case is built on a lie.
The whole thing.
Constructed entirely by people either directly involved with or closely associated with intelligence agencies. But this isn't entirely the end of
government
the Holloman UFO
disinformation.
landing story. There is another aspect to this story that isn't well known, regarding a Polaroid taken during a private screening of the Holloman footage in the late 1970s, which has been allegedly shown to a number of people interested in this case over the years. And this was even
more
alluded
carrot.
to by Robert Emenegger in
Dangling
the
a
finale of
carrot.
the documentary Mirage Men.
It was a daylight shot of a light ascending on Holloman Air Force Base. And then with that little clip, that's all that I can tell you that was genuine. A landing of a craft at Holloman, it was film, very brief. That's all, you know, I can tell you it's genuine.
Not genuine. Fake. Completely and totally
Not
fake.
really.
Okay. Can you elaborate? Can we just wait for that?
Saved by the car. I'm trying to think how to answer that. I knew what the film was about, all the details of it, but I never saw a real projected version.
Is there a still of it?
Yes.
He never saw the film, but there was a still of it.
One day this image may actually materialize, but if it ever does, you can be assured that it will not be what it appears to be, because the entire Holloman story, while fascinating, is entirely fabricated.
The whole
Not to
thing
mention
is fake.
every other expanded aspect of Holloman's involvement in UFO mythology. The Holloman UFO landing case is case closed, and every other story associated with it is also contaminated.
Yeah, because as people are apt to do in the UFO community, many take an existing or accepted story and they add to it. Wasn't it Holloman Air Force Base where President Eisenhower was supposed to go and meet the aliens? Or maybe that was another base, but there was definitely other stories besides this one about aliens and Holloman Air Force Base and Holloman Air Force Base involvement with UFOs and aliens. And all those stories were based on one original big lie.
In order for the Holloman tale to have flourished inside the minds of UFO believers, it required being a fantastic tale of intrigue and covert footage that accompanied the production. What was actually presented became second fiddle to what may have been, or perhaps one day could be. And this is the same playbook in operation today.
Yes,
Tell an extraordinary
same
story,
thing they're doing.
provide innocuous evidence to support it, use counterintelligence operatives as disclosure whistleblowers, and let people's minds do the rest of the heavy lifting, filling in the voids of the narrative with endless possibility. Then, once people become restless of multiple assurances of UFO disclosure, shift the goalposts and declare it a cover-up, lending further credence to the baseless claims.
Yeah. See, they're trying to cover it up. We were trying to bring you disclosure, but they're trying to cover it up. That's why we don't have the evidence to show you.
Meanwhile, everybody who's feeding from the subject profits from it every step of the way. Time after time, this is exactly how it's done.
Yeah, these cycles repeat over and over and over again, friends. And there's always some stories within the stories.
Around the same time as UFO Cover-Up Live, a man named Bob Lazar was quietly being courted by John Lear, the son of the man who invented the Learjet, along with modern UFO guru and exaggerated storyteller George Knapp.
That's a good
Lear, Knapp and
description.
Lazar would later take drunken excursions out to the perimeter of Groom Lake, where Lazar would show them operational test flights of supposed UFOs. that he claimed to
Yeah,
be
the
working
film is
on a
genuine.
secret
They lied
reverse
by omission
engineering
about the
program
content.
at
Yeah.
a secret location known as S4 at Area 51. But it wouldn't take long for Lazar's story to take an aviary-like plot twist. He mysteriously decided to deploy the very same methods used by the aviary to disclose his supposed knowledge. In an exclusive TV interview for local
It
Las
was
Vegas
Walker,
News
you're
with
right.
George Knapp,
Thank
Bob
you.
Lazar appeared in silhouette to
Thanks
discuss
for
his
being a
alleged
member.
story. Only now he was supposedly frightened for his life and going public to protect himself. He then proceeded to profit directly from it alongside George Knapp, selling expensive videos to a niche
We'll
market
see
of
about
devout
that.
believers and making numerous documentary appearances. For a man who claims to want to shun the limelight, his history reveals a man who is anything but shy of attention.
Yeah,
He flew
exactly.
a pirate flag over his home, made a car with a rudimentary rocket engine that he routinely demonstrated in his neighborhood.
Yeah, that doesn't look dangerous at all to be doing in a residential neighborhood, does it?
And all of this came long before his reverse engineering UFO
Yeah, what little
tapes.
he has
His
provided.
education is spotty at best. Despite the repeated claims, his story has significantly altered over the years. He is
I
most
agree with that.
assuredly an attention seeker, but avoids any and all public debate because his story simply cannot hold up to even mild scrutiny.
No,
The
it
fact
falls
that he cannot
apart.
validate the academics responsible for his supposed education at MIT is an issue.
The year, what was the year of graduation?
Yeah,
Probably,
he names the wrong professor.
probably 82. 'cause I
He
think
names
I
the one
left
from his
there,
local community college or his
went
high
to Los
school.
Alamos.
Did you say your records at Caltech and MIT have somewhat disappeared?
In Los Alamos. and-
Yep, Patty, somebody told him
Is there any
something.
way
Yeah.
you could reconstruct your coursework and your professors?
Oh, sure. I've got people that, that I went to school with, and George Knapp has spoken to some of them, and even flew with me up to Los Alamos and spoke to my colleagues there, and it's just.
Could you reveal some of your professors at MIT?
Yeah, here's where he screws up. He names a high
Yeah,
school
if you want.
teacher, I believe, Hostfield.
I don't have a list of them here. Dr. Duxler, I think, was one of them, and Hostfield was another.
Hostfield?
Yeah, one was a community college
H-O-H,
professor, and one was high school electronics teacher, I believe.
Oh, yeah, Hostfield I knew well.
These are at MIT or Caltech?
Hostfield was at MIT.
The fact that he has been caught lying and taking entire swathes of his story wholesale from popular works of fiction like Close Encounters, scientific magazines, and even Billy Meyer, one of the most notorious UFO hoaxes in the
Oh,
history
the
of
Billy
the
Meyer
subject,
connection,
does
yes.
not lend any authenticity to his story.
The saucer shape has.
This is the one that looks like one of the Meyer craft.
Right.
Have you ever seen the Billy Meyer movies? Does it look similar to that?
The Billy Meyer movies. I don't think I've ever seen any motion.
Yeah, he's got some that fly around a tree, and they've got.
Oh wait, I did see that. Yeah, I did see that.
And then there's some other.
Yeah, and just so everybody's aware, Bob Lazar's sports model looks exactly like Billy Meyer's beam ship. And Bob Lazar and his one-time partner, Gene Huff, they got all the Billy Meyer material from John Lear and watched it all and looked at it all shortly before Bob came out with his story.
You know what's strange about the Billy Meyer photographs? That the discs, that one of the ones he took a picture of, looks exactly like the one that I looked on.
As for the elusive element 115, which he claimed to have stolen from Area 51 and secreted away with the help of George Knapp for protection, well, that element was already much hypothesized and discussed as early as the 1960s, and as close to a few weeks as before Bob Lazar went public in Scientific American. Despite this, it is a story that has become as popular as ever, primarily due to George Knapp, with the help of another individual named Jeremy Corbell, who is now publicly disseminating misrepresented classified material, once again coming from official sources. And for as unimpressive as all of the George Knapp and Corbell leaks are, they are genuinely classified leaks.
Yeah, why are they getting classified leaks from the government? Could it be they're playing nice with the information assets, the government intel assets that want to spread certain disinformation?
And that being the case, it's illegal. Anyone doing that without the consent of the government should be in jail. Either way, whether
And by the way, these are the opinions of the filmmaker that we are reviewing. It's not my opinion. I'm not going to be held responsible for things that he's saying. Just putting that out there. Fair warning.
Which I suspect in Knapp's case, or unwittingly, as I suspect in Corbell's case, something is wrong with both Corbell and Knapp. And the profit being made as a direct result of the literal propaganda they are proliferating, with what appears to be a green light from officials unconcerned with somebody disseminating classified Reaper drone screenshots and video shot on Navy vessels of adversarial drones doing distinctly unremarkable things.
Yeah, again, unremarkable, ubiquitous so-called evidence, right?
And in some cases, just misrepresenting blurry stars in the sky, obscured by bokeh, which are an artifact of the camera's aperture, to then claim that these objects are breaking the laws of physics, but which no physicist has ever confirmed to be the case.
Yeah, how many times have we heard that line? These things defied the laws of physics. You never hear a physicist confirm that.
Doesn't take a brain surgeon to understand that things are not what they seem to be, especially when Jeremy Corbell, George Knapp, and Bob Lazar go out of their way to avoid public debate where they would be expected to answer difficult questions that they are fully aware cannot be answered if the story is to persist.
Yeah, the story falls apart under scrutiny or under, somebody willing to ask hard questions. All their stories do.
See Eric Weinstein's recent proposal for Bob Lazar to sit down and discuss
Yeah, that's never going to happen.
The theoretical
Never going to
physics
happen.
with an actual academic.
Wow. Yeah, that kind of let that sink in a second.
Corbell, Knapp, and Lazar himself have heavily profited from UFO documentaries, podcasts, T-shirts, convention appearances, even UFO model kits. They routinely lie by omission, bend any truth worth bending, and ignore vital context to sensationalize their profitable tales.
It's
They claim
definitely
to seek
profitable.
truth, but if you try to sit them down in a room with an actual academic on what is currently the single most popular show on Earth, at the request of Joe Rogan himself, then their MO changes from publicly commenting on any and all UFO-related topics in virtual real-time to mysteriously vanishing from the public sphere altogether.
Yeah, they have to go away for a little while so they don't have to answer these very important questions that demand answers.
Until the coast is clear, then they re-emerge with even more stories, perhaps another classified leak or a misrepresented balloon, missile flying over a war zone in Iraq, or flares dropped over a military base in California. You get the point. Something is wrong. And if you're unable to recognize it,
Yeah,
it's not
look,
because you're
there's
stupid.
Dave Grush,
It's probably
Travis
because you have
Taylor,
no
Skinwalker
knowledge
fame,
of the
Jay
accepted
Stratton.
history of this subject.
Good afternoon. A photo has surfaced that a lot of people are claiming is proof that the Roswell UFO incident was real.
Yeah, this is the Roswell Slides hoax.
Creature, and they claim it was taken in 1947 in Roswell.
Richard Dolan, a man who promotes himself as the bastion of respectable so-called ufology, but in reality has made it his livelihood and ensnared himself in profitable hoaxes, like Jamie Masson's infamous Roswell Slides event, which turned out to be nothing more than a museum exhibit. Richard Dolan also publicly claimed that he knew what was in the classified UFO briefings. But once that information was released, it turned out that the information he was providing wasn't accurate at all.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I think I'm seeing a lot of my reporting in this section, but I'm okay with that. Like, it's good information. We reported on the Roswell Slide hoax and Richard Dolan's involvement. Well, actually, many people have on that. But then we sort of took Richard Dolan to task for claiming that he had access to notes from the classified version of the original UAP report, which I knew would be highly illegal for him. So we sort of challenged him, and then he backed off of that. You remember that.
Time after time, we see people portray themselves as knowledgeable insiders, but it always turns out that their actual knowledge leaves much to be desired. Stephen Greer.
Oh, here's another one.
A man who brought together a number of UFO officials from all walks of life discussing their encounters with UFOs in the Disclosure Project, but in reality, a literal huckster responsible for disseminating hoax documentation, quoting officials with lies, claiming to have debriefed every president and CIA director in the last 20 plus years on the topic of UFOs.
Yeah, that's a lot of claims Greer has made, right?
With no records or evidence of any of these alleged crimes ever having taken place, who has also attached himself to numerous profitable hoaxes, boldly proclaiming to have the body of an extraterrestrial and promoted as such to sell his awful documentary Sirius.
Yeah, he collected, I think, $1 million just to make the film, and then he probably collected a few more $1 million after the film was made from, the streaming services.
Was later proven to be a mummified ancient fetus, who also operates an ongoing business involving private alien contact, where people pay thousands of dollars to go out into the desert or stand on a secluded beach and meditate as someone
Yeah,
drops
let's
flares out
meditate
of a
those
private
aliens,
plane
right?
on the horizon. Edgar Mitchell, the sixth man on the moon, was undoubtedly courted by counterintelligence agents on the UFO topic.
Yeah, I think that's indisputable.
And died a believer due to what he was being told behind the scenes. It turns out by dubious people who have almost certainly already been referenced or soon will be in this very video. The now infamous Admiral Wilson document came from Edgar Mitchell's estate after his death.
Yeah, I don't think that's a coincidence, right? Interestingly, though, I've never seen any documentation or on-the-record sourcing from his family that confirms that came out of his estate. People claim that it's kind of a difficult thing to confirm or have a definite denial of, unless somebody knows Edgar Mitchell's children or next of kin. But I think it would be important to follow up that lead and try to see if they really did come from his estate. Everybody says they did, but I haven't seen official confirmation from his family that they came out of his estate.
Touted as the UFO leak of the century by Richard Dolan, but refuted adamantly by Admiral Wilson himself as complete lies, both publicly and to Richard Dolan personally. The Admiral Wilson memo is almost certainly fanciful fiction, tailored to suit the whims of a billionaire being exploited for money and his belief in the subject. And that document's author is none other than Eric Davis.
Bob Bigelow, there you go.
Another dubious so-called academic with kooky fringe theories employed at the time by Robert Bigelow to look into...
Oh, look, this is another thing we reported on, which is Eric Davis's wackadoo papers. He's got Einstein talking to a dinosaur. It looks like Barney the dinosaur. And this is actually from one of the papers that the United States government paid him a lot of money to write on theoretical physics.
UFOs on his behalf. Robert Bigelow, a billionaire who was initially conned into purchasing Skinwalker Ranch and initiating the NIDS investigative team, which also featured such luminaries as Colm Kelleher, who co-wrote the first book on Skinwalker Ranch with George Knapp. Another UFO personality who, amongst others, has the uncanny ability...
Yeah, and yesterday I think I incorrectly reported that Jay Stratton wrote that book with George Knapp. It was Colm Kelleher, so I apologize. He was a major source for it, being the Axelrod, right?
Ability to crop up absolutely everywhere, that intelligence agencies are conducting misinformation campaigns. A man who is undeniably entwined with pushing UFO narratives behind the scenes, both as an investigative journalist,
oh, he's going after Knapp. Oh no!
Whenever he covers the subject of UFOs, he is also most assuredly the reason his friend and podcast co-host Jeremy Corbell is able to get his hands on unimpressive but genuinely classified leaks. Due to his murky intelligence connections, his historical proximity to the topic, and a distinct lack of journalistic rigor on the subject matter, is evidence enough to suggest that appearances are certainly not...
He plays games with the CIA.
Today, counterintelligence operatives with murky histories have interwoven themselves directly into the UFO community. And recently they began targeting STEM PhDs in the academic fields to help provide an air of authenticity to the topic. Eric Weinstein was a target of this operation, but has thus far not taken the bait, and recently publicly condemned it for potentially attempting to recruit him in a disinformation campaign. Another academic is Sam Harris, an extremely popular philosopher and neuroscientist, who has the same story as Weinstein, who also refused the bait. And then there is...
So they're out there trying to actively, recruit academics to lend credence to their awful and often fake stories.
Professor Gary Nolan of Stanford University, who freely admits that the CIA came to his office in Stanford and asked him to start looking into the subject of UFOs.
Stanford professor, an immunologist doing medical research and building companies, and all of a sudden one day the CIA shows up at your office.
Right. No, of course. I mean, like I said, I mean, at first I thought it was a joke. I mean, I really thought that somebody was about to put me on candid camera and make a joke of it.
And has since become an advocate for it.
Yeah, he's all chips in on the whole intelligence operation, right? And he's David Grush's new boss or recent boss in one of his UFO organizations. David Grush is listed as the chief operating officer of that organization owned by Gary Nolan.
To such an extent that he was recently recruiting investors at a tech summit, making the extraordinary claim that he was weeks away from being shown actual UFO wreckage by the government.
I mean, I could say this. I was working with a group about 7-8 years ago, and I literally got within a few weeks of gaining access to one of the objects. And when the people who didn't want us to gain access to it found out about it, they pulled some bureaucratic administrative tricks and snatched it away.
Oh, he was so close. He almost got to see the alien spaceships, but the government snatched it away. Cover-ups.
Does this sound familiar? Academics are being quietly recruited in private by people directly connected to the intelligence sector, quite possibly by Hal Puthoff himself, if history is any precedent.
Yeah, I believe
They're all
that.
being
I believe
asked
that.
to use their expertise to lend credibility to the subject of UFOs, or as they have recently been rebranded, UAPs.
UAPs, yeah.
However,
It's the CIA
very few
word for
academics have
UFO.
taken the bait because upon cursory inspection, there is absolutely no there and no evidence to ever support there ever having been a there to begin with. Enter a man named Travis Taylor.
Oh, Travis Taylor, too, from Skinwalker Ranch.
A TV personality currently the lead in a reality TV entertainment program titled The Secrets of Skinwalker Ranch, which may just be the single best example anywhere of how science should not be conducted.
For being a very educated real scientist, Travis Taylor is terrible at many things, including scientific method, drawing conclusions before any science is actually done. He is looking for paranormal stuff. It doesn't matter what it is. It's got to be paranormal. That's how he keeps the paychecks rolling in.
Was recently revealed to have direct ties to a secret Pentagon effort to investigate UFOs, but in reality is bested in virtual real time by a video game designer named Mick West, along with Travis Taylor's Pentagon efforts, which failed to identify virtually anything that required critical thinking.
Yeah, like
Be
a
it
Batman
misidentified
balloon.
stars, balloons, you name it, they fail to identify it. To such an extent that they even fail to understand how to use basic star charts.
Yeah, they didn't know how to use star charts. They didn't know how to use satellite tracking, but they're investigating UFOs for the government. They're here to promote the mystery, friends, not to solve it. If you solve the mystery, there's no there's no money.
These are not the caliber of people who are going to bring UFO disclosure to the masses, but they are individuals who are happy to enjoy the lucrative benefits that the UFO community provides them, with the convention circuit and residuals from a show that is as popular as it is downright stupid. Then there is David Fravor.
He's not pulling any punches.
Pilot with an extraordinary and compelling
David Fravor
tale, who doesn't seem to be able to keep the details of his story straight, along with co-pilots and other planes involved in the alleged Nimitz incident at the
and her husband was part of a government UFO program.
time of his encounter, and none of them even once thought to operate any of the sophisticated camera systems in their planes to actually document what may have been one of the most extraordinary encounters in the history of the planet.
Yeah, they both should have had cameras on board.
Not one of them. Wouldn't you want to take a picture of that? Does nobody believe that it wouldn't have been protocol to take visual evidence of this encounter?
I would think so,
It's a compelling story, but it doesn't make any sense. The footage leaked of this incident by Lou Elizondo and Christopher Mellon via the New York Times is actually of a different encounter, with a different pilot later that same day, looking for the same alleged craft. The footage provided of this particular incident is once again grainy and unimpressive.
Yeah, it's always grainy and unimpressive. Welcome to the world of UFOs.
And proof of absolutely nothing out of the ordinary. Meanwhile, Fravor & Co. became embraced by the UFO community. His story was compelling, and he sure seems like a believable witness.
Yeah, I'll give him that. He seems very believable.
But upon closer inspection, the story just doesn't hold up to scrutiny, and discrepancies between all of the pilots allegedly involved further dampens any authenticity. Not to mention that David Fravor went on a podcast tour that culminated in a UFO parade, riding around in an open car.
Yeah, this is when he... Welcome to the circus.
And
Bob
Lazar,
Lazar.
which isn't a great look if your credibility is on the line.
Yeah, let's hang out with the convicted pimp fake scientists, right?
My name is Lou Elizondo.
Oh, there's Lou Elizondo.
As a career intelligence officer, I am accustomed to being involved in close-hold, nuanced programs involving national security.
Lou Elizondo, another counterintelligence operative who loves to do the podcast circuit.
He loves to do it. He did hundreds of them. You know, as long as you weren't asking critical questions, he would do your podcast, even if you had, 200 subscribers.
I'm not a UFO guy, not a ufologist. I never have been, I never will be. I'm a counterterrorism and counterespionage guy. I just do counterintelligence, counterinsurgencies.
And this is the
That's
famous
what I
clip.
do. And it just so
We've
happens
used this as well.
that in 2008, I was asked to apply those same skill sets into the UFO community.
Who, out of the kindness of his own heart, left the government and decided to dedicate his life to UFO disclosure and monetizing the subculture.
Monetizing the subculture. That's a good way to put it.
The problem is, he's a professional liar. All counterintelligence agents are.
Yeah,
It's what they
exactly.
do.
That's their job.
Yeah.
It's their job to lie to people, friends. That's their job. Why would you believe anything that a counterintelligence officer had to tell you?
They're trained to do.
Especially about controversial subjects like this.
Do it convincingly. They will look you directly in the eye and smile at you with sincerity as they lie to your face. And in fairness, it is their job. But unfortunately, for those unsuspecting people caught in the crossfire, they effectively derail people's lives.
Yeah, how many people have we seen, jump headlong into the Lou Elizondo cult? There's people that are literally doing illegal things like cyber stalking and harassing people, intimidating people, threatening people, doxing people, because they tell the truth about this counterintelligence officer, fake Pentagon UFO program director.
Over the last decade, UFOs were systematically rebranded as UAPs by officials trying to distance themselves from the historic stigma of the subject. And Lou Elizondo was at the forefront of spearheading that campaign.
Yeah, they wanted to erase all of the wacky woo and make it more serious and a topic worthy of more serious discussion. So that, I believe, the switch from UFO to UAP was a deliberate effort to destigmatize the topic and rebrand it.
Most assuredly in preparation for a political campaign that never actually materialized, but was having the groundwork systematically laid for it by the
And these are all these people
Hillary Clinton, who
close to
learned of her
Grush.
husband's alleged public interest in the subject in the 90s, when he requested Roswell be investigated, only to discover nothing of note. Hillary Clinton promised on numerous talk shows to once again reopen the books when she gained office.
I asked him about UFOs and Area 51.
It's UAPs.
If you looked in, because if I was president, that's the first thing I do. I go right into those files and see what was going on.
Right.
And he said that he did do that.
Yes.
And that he didn't find anything.
Well, I'm gonna do it again.
Only for it to end as predictably as you may expect.
Yeah.
With quiet whispers of discontent.
They thought that
intel agencies,
Hillary Clinton was going to be the disclosure president.
poised to capitalize on it as a springboard for a new campaign of political distraction. This is most likely why in 2017, during a hostile administration to the intelligence sector, they took the narrative into their own hands, which really reached its zenith during the pandemic in 2020, when imprisoned eyes around the world during lockdown with nothing better to do were inundated from officials and dubious journalists all promising UFO disclosure that never came to pass, but was nothing more than a highly convenient and welcome distraction from the horrors that most people were facing during that period.
Yeah, and that's it, friends. A disinformation campaign fed to a willing captive audience. And that's, I think we're going to table things here. So in the description of the video, you can watch the rest of the video. I think this was a good historical look at these intelligence operations and these intelligence officers' infiltration of, manipulation of, and control of the UFO community, the UFO narrative. A good overview of some of the things that we have reported here as well. I'm going to see if we can have the filmmaker come here for a discussion about this. Now is a good time to remind you that we are a viewer-supported show. We don't do the UFO circle jerk. We don't sell out to CIA narratives or intelligence officers looking to manipulate and disseminate disinformation. At least we try our very best to. And we exist through the kindness, generosity, and support of you viewers. So if you like content like this, we invite you to become a supporter in one form or another and help us continue to create content like this that is free as possible, of CIA or intelligence officer involvement in the dissemination of information. We like to think of our show as a public benefit that helps peel back the layers of deception. And let's be clear, there is an awful lot of layers of deception out there being injected into this subject. We thank each and every one of you for being supporters. The show is not over. I'll be back to take some comments and questions from the live chat. Read any remaining super chats. We read every single one. We'll be right back, friends.
Truthseekers is a viewer-supported show. Wonderful people like you who enjoy this show send pledges in the form of super chats, super stickers, super thanks, PayPal, or Cash App. Instructions for how to help are in the description. You can also join our Patreon, and for as little as $1 a month, you can get extra content. Patreon supporters get a backstage pass, early access to all our production videos before they are distributed publicly, Stephen Cambion's music, private writings, a monthly show journal, and more. You can also become a YouTube channel member for $5 a month. A YouTube membership includes all of the Patreon benefits, plus a special members badge, priority reply to video comments, and the live chat, plus a monthly members-only video. We thank you all, kind and generous benefactors, for supporting Truth Seekers. Thank you for your generosity and support. Truthseekers is a viewer-supported show. Now there's a great way to support these broadcasts and show your support. Please be sure and check out our merchandise store. Links to our 2 merchandise online stores are in the links to this video or podcast. The Amazon storefront ships super quickly in the United States, Great Britain, and in many more places. Amazon may not ship to your country or location. If that's the case, hit our second merchandise link in the description and visit our Redbubble storefront. Merchandise from our Redbubble storefront ships worldwide, but may take longer than Amazon. We've got a great deal of super high quality merchandise for you to choose from, including t-shirts, phone cases, sweatshirts, and even pillows. The feedback from our products have been overwhelmingly great. Quality products and fast shipping. People all over the world are buying some merchandise and showing their support of the show. Praise the cash! Praise the cash! Praise the cash! We thank you all, kind and generous benefactors, who are buying some merchandise and helping us to continue this journey. Thanks for being here. This is Truthseekers with your host, Stephen Campion. Please rate, like, and comment on our videos or podcasts. If you are listening to an audio podcast, please rate us 5 stars to help us rise in the search rankings. If you are watching on YouTube, please like, comment, and subscribe to our channel. If you're listening to an audio podcast, we love and appreciate you listeners, but you are missing the live tapings. All our shows are recorded live with video feed. We'd love you to come be a part of our live broadcasts and tapings for the podcast. Head on over to YouTube, click the search tool, the little magnifying glass, put Truthseekers, one word in the search bar, and hit enter. You'll see a strange and mysterious guy with sunglasses. That means you found the channel. Go there, smash the subscribe button, and hit the notification bell to receive up-to-date info on our YouTube channel. We welcome you to be a part of our live taping and our chat room during the live broadcasts. Seek the truth. Speak the truth. This is Truthseekers. Truthseekers.
So we are back. I'll be taking some comments and questions from our friends here in the live chat. Please put them in all capital letters. We appreciate all of you for being here, whether you're chatting on our Rumble chat, watching on Facebook Live, Twitter Live, or you friends over there in the Twitch chat. We appreciate all of you for being here. So questions or comments for me, please put them in all capital letters. B. Baker reminding people the show's not over. Yes. Sometimes we play that bumper and people think this show is over. I don't know if it's the music or we should, yeah. Usually we take comments and questions at the end of the chat. Complizer wants me to tell Trixie that he loves her. I'll pass your love along. I will do that, right? You name it, they failed to identify it. Yeah, balloons, flares, they don't identify. These guys are terrible UFO investigators. Stars, Saturn, let's see, Starlink satellites, the ISS gets misidentified. It's just ridiculous. Mr. Ian should do ASMR readings. His voice is soothing. Yeah, that's why we drafted him into service. Grush and Elizondo, says Amy Collins, both were making a minimum of $117,000 plus other benefits. What could really drive them into UFO circles? The promise of millions. Yeah, I think they probably could make more than $117,000 a year on the UFO circuit, but that's my personal belief and speculation. Mark Toronto reminding people, if you like Stephen's work, please like, share, and subscribe. Watch another one of his videos even. Everything helps. Yes, our call to action. If you watch another video, it really does help because YouTube sees that and it turns up the dials. On the recommends. So if you come back and watch one more, it would really help us. Please be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and share these videos on your social media. That also helps us to find new friends, and we thank all of you that I see doing that. Randy 1979, do you think the Zamora UFO was a lunar lander prototype being tested? It could have been something from the space program. To me, it's more likely it was something like that, or a secret government project like a VTOL, vertical takeoff and landing craft. Seems more likely to me to be a secret government project than it was definitely aliens. People jump to the alien explanation far too quickly. And I doubt that Complizer. Long story. Monetizing the subculture as a professional liar, says Miss Turi. And thank you, Miss Turi, for being here and for being a member. We appreciate you. Thank you. Thin Lizzie Borden says, do it. I don't know what I'm doing. Do what? It's very unspecific there, Thin Lizzie Borden. Matt G is here and says, I'm a nut job that thinks they probably faked the moon landings. Well, there's a lot of weird evidence about that, but it does fall apart if you really scrutinize it. The so-called evidence of the faked moon landing, I think, falls apart. Alga Ray is here and says, I'm going to recommend tonight's video to a couple of friends who are true believers. Yeah, I mean, the best we could do is try to educate some people. You can only pull that so long. And B. Baker, I'll talk to you about that off air later. Heard that Linda Moulton Howe makes several $1,000s for a conference appearance. Gresh can do well. Yeah, he'll probably be getting bigger money than her right out of the gate. Matt G says a lot of weird discrepancies with the moon landing. I get it, but I think there's rational, grounded explanations for a lot of that stuff. Lunar lander could not land on Earth as it was built too light for Earth's gravity. Only worked on the moon. That's probably correct. Yeah, it was built for low gravity environment like the moon. Do it till you're satisfied. Well, that's usually, you gotta usually do it till you're satisfied, right? Yeah. Looking for other comments, questions or comments for me, please put them in all capital letters. We appreciate all of you being here. I think it's important, we've been saying this for a while now, to view these things through the lens of history. And as we do that, we see that all of this has happened before and it'll all happen again. And I'm often kind of surprised, honestly, at how incredibly unoriginal these UFO people are. They like recycle riffs and ideas, right? Like, oh, I was gonna see that alien spaceship, and right at the last minute, they pulled it away from me, just like the Holloman, so-called Holloman footage, and we see the mythology built around that, and lots of stories around a video that was not what people said it was. And isn't it a shame that it takes that many years for a fake or false story or disinformation or misinformation to really and truly unravel? Interesting to watch it happen in real time. I, for one, I don't want to see Grush on the Griff circuit for the next 5 years. If he doesn't have evidence, we want to get to that determination as quickly as possible and move on to, more important things. If all this guy's going to do is tell stories or bring 40 other people who are going to tell stories and not prove anything, it has no value, no evidentiary value whatsoever. And I get it. A lot of people say, oh, well, testimony is evidence, Stephen. It's not enough. If you're going to convince people that all of this is real, you need some smoking gun evidence, some smoking gun proof, right? How did they get the footage back to Earth? They put it in a shielded case, I'm told, or I believe I read somewhere, and it made its way back. And they also broadcast it from the moon. Stephen, do you think Flavor, Graves, Grush are bold-faced liars? Please don't give the standard answer of misidentified, lied to, or deranged. Well, Wusha, I take each of them on a case-by-case basis. Ryan Graves didn't say anything with his own eyes. I really don't care what he has to say. He conflates things like we saw. We didn't see anything. Other people saw it and told you about it, and you're recounting a secondhand story with no evidence, no documentation, no radar tapes, no film. So, and one of his claims is that the square inside of a circle, which could very well be radar reflectors. Again, I think that people jump to the alien explanation. As far as Fravor, he seems genuine. In fact, so does Graves seem genuine in their belief that what they're saying is accurate, correct, and real. But I'm just not convinced without evidence. And as far as Grush goes, I don't believe that he's a bull-faced liar. I think he truly believes what he's saying. The problem is we don't get to see what made him base that opinion and why he's so adamant that this is all real. But he would not, as we've seen tonight, be the first person that disinformation agents, misinformation agents, government agents convince somebody that the aliens are here and it's all real and here's some evidence. Look what they did to Benowitz. They fed him false evidence for months and months and months and months and months. How do we not examine the possibility that similarly in Grush's case, government agents have fed him false information for months and months and months, and it's just convincing enough that the totality of it convinces him that he's being truthful when he recounts these things. And remember, this is just people telling him things. They may be very well credentialed people, which adds weight in his mind, I assume. You know, I don't want to assume the worst in him, like, you know, oh, this is all fake and he knows it and it's a grift. I don't want to speculate that far out, but I will say that so far he's been out here for a couple of months soaking up all the attention, and he has provided nothing as far as evidence. Somebody told me this is true. Okay, great. And now we're supposed to hear from those people. So it's kick the can, chase the carrot. And we have seen this for decades. Chase the can. No, the evidence is coming. That Holloman footage is going to be released. And that's the smoking gun proof that aliens visited Earth and the government met with them and covered it up. Then we find out years and years and years later, it's a goddamn airplane with the spotlight on. You know, we keep repeating this mantra of, you know, over sensationalize, over promise. Inevitably, they under deliver, and then comes the big letdown. Right now, we're in the under delivering stage. This man, David Grush, made absolutely out of this world, just sensational claims. And we're waiting for evidence. It's been a few months now, no evidence, really, just stories, you know, so we're in the under deliver phase. Unless Grush provides smoking gun evidence or proof, 100% that no one can argue with, of alien visitation on Earth or non-human visitation on Earth and bodies and intact spacecraft, he's got to provide proof of an awful lot of huge claims he's made. Unless he does, we're right back where we were in 1988 with government agents feeding people false information, promising smoking gun proofs, promising evidence, but we never seem to actually get to the evidence part of it. So that's what I think. I hope that's sufficient. I don't know about the standard answer of misidentified, but I will say that, you know, a misidentified craft is just as likely of an explanation as alien spaceships and alien visitors to Earth. Sixth Sense is here and says, I think Grush is in on it without any doubt. There is nobody with his credentials and accomplishments that would believe such hogwash. Well, you know, some people can be very, very gullible and want to believe. Remember, that desire to believe this makes people let their guard down and not be very critical. Look, I want to believe it's true. A lot of people spent a large chunk of their time on this stuff for years, in some cases decades or lifetimes. They don't want to give it up and go, it always turns out to be fake or not what people claimed. And, you know, there is this very purposeful manipulation of members of the UFO community. And we've seen this with these intelligence assets over and over and over again, manipulating people. One can point to the example of Mr. Elizondo and how there is claims against him that he manipulated people to go attack his critics. And he used sock puppets, fake accounts to go attack his critics. That's a purposeful manipulation of an attempt to manipulate perceptions too. Let's shut this critic up. Go attack these critics. Defend the honor of me and my family. And a bunch of marks, idiots, UFO circle jerk show hosts that wanted access to him because it was good for them and good for their wallets, did whatever he said. Allegedly, he still hasn't addressed the controversy. And ask yourself this: if somebody was running around doxing people, threatening people, intimidating people, and harassing people in your name and doing it to defend you, if you didn't stand behind that, you would come out and you would make a statement about that. And to my knowledge, Elizondo hasn't yet. But of course, I've been blocked on Twitter by him for asking hard and critical questions for years now, because he's an intellectual weakling and a coward. And if he was faced with someone of my knowledge of this entire subculture, this genre, the mythology, the history, the players involved, if he had to submit himself to questioning from someone like me, he would fall apart into a puddle on the floor, piss himself, and cry like a bitch. That's why he won't be a guest here. That's why he will shield himself from anyone knowledgeable enough to destroy the layers of deception that him and others like him have built around all of this circus of UFO dollars. All right, we'll take a few more comments and questions. Remote chewing is real, says Complizaire. Well, that could be. Wucha says, just in case you're wrong, where do I deliver a truckload of humble pie? Yeah, look, I would be happy I was wrong. If someone tomorrow, I've said this before, all I could do is give an honest analysis of how I see things. If you disagree with me, great. However, we do have an 8-year track record of getting the story right. Where everybody else jumped onto the TTSA money grab, which may have all be under investigation now for being some kind of a swindle, allegedly. We got that story right. We got the Elizondo story right. We got the Anjali story right through careful analysis and investigation and real work. We get stories right here. And at this point, until there's evidence to investigate and evaluate, all I can do is offer my feelings and my speculation on what will happen here. If I'm wrong, I will admit that I was wrong, and I will cream my pants, because that will mean it's all true. Aliens really are here, and we do have alien spacecraft and all that stuff. And wouldn't that be a cooler world to live in? Absolutely. But I believe that history is our greatest teacher. We did a whole series on all the UFO whistleblowers before him. They never delivered the goods. We're going to do a whole series on UFO crash retrieval programs, or UFO crash cases, and how there's all these promises of evidence, and this is real, but you never get to the evidence or proof. We did a whole show yesterday night. I highly encourage you to watch that as well, all on the not so brief history of all the people who are currently promoting Dave Grush as the next UFO messiah. How many UFO messiahs have we been through, right? Bob Lazar, Lou Elizondo, Corey Goode, David Wilcock. They all talk a good game. They all make millions of dollars, but they never seem to prove their fantastic out-of-this-world claims. And I think that history repeats. If I was a betting man, Wusha, I would say I'm 90%, 95% that Grush is not going to deliver any evidence of his out-of-this-world huge claims. And that's probably because I've been here for so long that I've seen so many other people come forward with fantastical claims and claim that they're going to deliver all this evidence. Then they drip out a bunch of nonsense for years while they fill their pockets with every dollar they can before it all comes crashing down. And we're still in the under-deliver phase. JD says Grush's claims of UAP the size of aircraft carriers came from Mario Woods. Grush's claims of a 40-foot UAP the size of a stadium inside came from Daniel Sheehan's former client, Alex Collier. Oh, Alex Collier is a super wackadoo. I wasn't aware of that, JD. I'm going to look into that claim. And if you have any sources for that, you can email me at truthseekershow@gmail.com. I like to share information with my friends and audience members. I would love to see Alex Collier making those claims, and we can do a side-by-side sort of comparison, right? Oh, that's great. And he's also repeating stuff from I believe, from Eric Davis and Hal Puthoff, and definitely repeating stuff from Lou Elizondo and Gary Nolan. So who were his 40 sources? A bunch of wackadoos whose names we're all too familiar with that have been filling their pockets with UFO dollars for years and years and years now, but never seem to prove anything. Like, what am I still doing here? What are you still doing here? Wouldn't our time be more meaningfully spent, I don't know, doing something like feeding the homeless people or something? But yet we are all still here, stuck in this rabbit hole. At least I am, right? And you know that it gets deeper and deeper, and then the cycle repeats, and we rinse and repeat, and the old hoaxes come back as new hoaxes, and the old hoaxers come back as credible again. We've seen that happen. Stuff that was completely busted as fake, they just show up again 5 or 10 years later. There's a new crowd of wannabe believers that are anxious for the information and just accept that they weren't a fraud the first time. And then we see these stories always repeated. The stories go in cycles, Bob Lazar kind of died down, and then it all came back with the Corbell retelling of the garbage. It was garbage the first time, but the first time I believed it till I, investigated on my own. And then, the old stories come back. Roswell's come back how many times? And people tack onto it and add on to it. We've got the Roswell rock. We've got the Roswell slides. We've got the alien autopsy. That's from the aliens from Roswell. It all is one big self-perpetuating, like, mythology, world of mythology. And that's what I've come to realize about it. And we see these ancient stories that were touted as the smoking gun come crashing down. The Trinity case, that's Jacques Vallée's convinced that that's real. That was a complete and total hoax. It all comes crashing down eventually. That's the big letdown. Grush is going to take some time to get to the big letdown. I just hope it doesn't take 5 years like it did with Elizondo before the story comes crashing down. I don't want to waste 5 years covering that guy if he's got nothing. If you got nothing, just, and by the way, the hearing was the place to drop all the evidence, right? Shock and awe. They should have dropped whatever they had and tried to have a huge impact. They had nothing. They had, somebody told me some stories. Great. Oh, I can't tell you in an open session. It's classified or something. No, it's not, because the DOD cleared him to talk about alien bodies and crash retrieval programs. He could say anything he wanted about those things within reason, I guess. Didn't have the evidence. But don't worry, he gave it to classified people. Sure, it's like the perfectly designed grift. They have an excuse for why he can't drop the evidence. The evidence is classified. No, it's not. Prove it. Full of shit. And Elizondo groomed him. The guy who lied to us for 8 years, right? Who, in my opinion, has been lying to everybody for 8 years, is the guy grooming the new guy, right? To take that spotlight and generate interest so we all keep making the UFO dollars. Yeah. From Art Levine, is Elizondo just a greedy opportunist or officially approved disinfo agent? Well, thank you for the question, Art Lewis. I am undecided on that issue. I don't know if he was sent in. He claimed at one time that he was sent in to apply his counterintelligence skills into the UFO community. If he's acting on his own, it doesn't make sense that he would say that. But then again, he's a professional liar. I don't know when he's lying, when he's not lying. You can prove he's lying sometimes. It's a grimy, shady game to get the truth out of an intelligence guy. They're professional liars. I think we always need to keep that in mind. Randy says, the Roswell rock, I can do that with my Dremel, and so can anyone else with a Dremel. Yeah, I know that. I know that, Randy. I tried it. You can make your own Roswell rock. Just get a Dremel. With the right bit, you too can make a Roswell artifact. The Sixth Sense. Yep, they all pretty much use the exact same template. Yeah, we've seen a lot of that, right? Amy Collins says that possibly Sheehan and Alex Collier supplied Grush with info. JD said, I got you, so I suppose he was pulling our leg. Oh, okay. All right. Well, I'll believe it if I. That's why I asked him for sourcing, Amy Collins, because people say a lot of things, but until I see the source of that information, I don't take it as accurate. People share a lot of information here in our peanut gallery over here, our live chat. So we try to at least entertain it, but I always ask people for the sourcing before I would share it as true and accurate information. 1 second here. So we'll do the chat pop out. We haven't done that in quite a while. If you're just joining us, you a overview of government disinformation applied into, some would say, invading into the UFO community. You're watching Truthseekers. This is our special report, Government PSYOPS, Disinformation and UFOs. We thank all of you for being here. Let me pop out this chat and we'll share that here. So we have quite a great audience in the peanut gallery tonight. We want to thank each and every one of you for joining us. We'll share that live chat. Questions or comments from me in all capital letters. It really, really does help. Yeah, that's how you tell he's lying. His lips are moving. Mark Tarana says, Elizondo passed on the grift torch. Yes, he did. JD said, remember, Grush stated in his interview with Ross Coulthard that he was perplexed that all these people confided in him out of nowhere. Elizondo coordinated all these people approaching him. Allegedly, JD, that's a very good possibility. It's another op. Let's get a new asset on our side, a new Bobo. Go figure out what a CIA Bobo is, right? Ask Tom DeLonge what a CIA Bobo is. It's a useful idiot. And I'm not calling Mr. Grush an idiot or Tom DeLonge an idiot. That's a term, useful idiot. Sometimes intelligence organizations find useful idiots that will do what they need done, that will help them spread their disinformation. That could be exactly what is occurring here with Mr. Grush. Matt G is asking if I saw that. Yeah, and if that's something that passes for evidence in 2023, it looks like it was filmed in 1992. You know, it's a grainy garbage. And then there's a picture of the guy with his face ripped off. I don't know. I haven't looked into it seriously, Matt G. If people really demand that I cover that, I think it's a nonsense story. And in fact, any stories coming out of South America or Latin countries, I tend to discount because in my personal experience, people in South America are very, very superstitious, and people in Mexico, very, very superstitious. And I think that they jump right to the supernatural when some event happens. So I would be very cautious with believing that story. Troll says UFO grifters source their information from other UFO grifters. Yes, we have seen that happen time and time again. We have. There's a script you can run to put live chat right in OBS main without the need to make another window. We're not using OBS, remember. I'm using StreamYard. And I know there's a way to pipe OBS into it. I don't want to overcomplicate things. We like our simple setup here. It works and does most of what I want. Marzulli stiffed us for an interview, and he made hokey excuses. Yeah, he didn't want to answer the hard questions I had for him. I think so. Atari 2600 video clip evidence. Exactly. Willowy 13 is here, and welcome, Willowy 13. James Webb should be brought back to Earth. If he can send clear images of the universe to us, it sure can take decent pictures of UFOs here on Earth. Yeah, pointed at Earth. They're poor, maybe looking for fame too. Yeah, a lot of people in the UFO community looking for fame. And I'm not one of them. You know, one of the things that I see, Archaic Revival, that's sad is that there are some people that come here and this becomes a source of ego for them. This becomes like an ego boost. Like, oh, I'm talking about UFOs and people care what I'm talking about. And then we see some of these show hosts that are willing to stab anybody in the back and do anything to get a little more spotlight for themselves. It's really sad to see that. You know, I myself has had more spotlight in my life than any one man should have. I've been on far too many stages and been the center of attention for far too long in my life. And quite honestly, I think it's kind of funny that I started doing my original show, The Midnight Hour, so that I could just not be in the spotlight. And here we are. It just grew and grew and grew from the audio podcast into what is now Truthseekers. And but I really could take or leave that spotlight. I'm not here for that. I'm here kind of to document and share my own personal journey with all of these rabbit holes in conspiracy land, and strange and esoteric topics is something I've always enjoyed. And I want to look into everything and share it with you guys. And we try our best to do that. Greer is reptilian. Knapp, Cowbell, and Grush is lizard people. Elizondo is a dynabeaver, according to Complete Zero. You heard it here first. Breaking news. Question from Dawn Lampert, and thanks for being here, Dawn. I know there's a lot of BS in the UFO community, but my family has dealt with the alien abduction phenomenon for 3 generations. I am 70 years old. Is there anyone real who speaks about it? You mean about alien abductions? You know, I'm the wrong person to ask, Dawn Lampert. But I would be happy to talk to you and members of your family and hear your stories on or off air. And you know, I'm at least interested enough to hear people out. The problem that I always have with the alien abduction stories is there's no evidence. Again, just stories. And I get it's a personal experience and things like that. But I used to have people communicate to me that told me things like, I get abducted every night. And I'm like, great, I'll come over and set up some cameras. And then they made excuses. Oh, that won't work. They know when there's cameras. And I'm still on the fence about the whole alien abduction thing. To some, it could just be sleep paralysis or dreams or other mundane explanation. And I'm aware of at least one case, Dawn Lampert, where somebody was having these strange abduction or haunting or poltergeist experiences, or at least they believed they were. And then it was found out that there was very high levels of magnetic radiation in the atmosphere that they lived. I don't remember exactly the source of it, but there was some kind of magnetic fields, and magnetic fields can cause hallucinations. I mean, it's a fascinating topic. I don't know who to trust when it comes to alien abductions. I know I interviewed several people, including Barbara Lampert, who's a professed expert, and she's a hypnotherapist. But I found her to be extremely gullible and just believes anything people tell her. So it's kind of a problem. It's a landmine. Alien abductions for me is a landmine because I don't want to be insensitive, Dawn Lampert, to somebody's personal experience. That's their truth. They really truly believe it happened. So I was kind of danced around people that have those experiences because I'm not sure what to do with that information if it's just a story and a personal experience. Now, where it becomes interesting to me is if we can capture evidence of an abduction event, then that would be completely different. But so far, after years and years and years of people talking about alien abduction, stories, books, documentaries, TV shows, and more, we still don't have evidence. We have stories, and that's a lot like the rest of the UFO world, in my view. Mr. Rees says, passing on knowledge to the youngins, that would be a good thing to do. Bobby Broadway says, Dawn, if you haven't seen Ariel School movie yet, definitely see that. An Experiencers movie. Yeah, JD is here and says, red flags. David Grush and Carl E. Neal were both liaisons for the UAP task force directed by Dr. Travis Shane Taylor. Why isn't anyone asking him to corroborate Grush's claims? Yeah, wouldn't he know if Grush was really supposed to investigate this stuff, or if he's just saying he was, right? Yeah, B. Baker, I don't mean stupid. I mean superstitious. There's a complete and total difference. And by the way, I am speaking from personal experience, and my personal experience may be different than yours. Don't be so offended. Everybody's so quick to offend. I said they were a little more superstitious than Americans. That's all I meant. So with the knowledge that they're a lot more suspicious than an average American, or excuse me, a lot more superstitious than an average American, I would be very cautious when investigating claims coming out of those areas. That's just logic. There's nothing offensive about that. And if you're offended by that, you probably shouldn't be walking around. You know, the Sixth Sense says, if anything, stories can be interesting and people can decide for themselves. But yeah, must be prepared. Have some critics, some good, some bad, Don Lampert. Yeah, I mean, it's got to be a hard road to walk, you know, telling people about your experience and the stigma that comes with it. But I applaud anybody that does have the courage to talk about these strange and mysterious and unusual experiences that they've had throughout their lives. Some people, I've talked to many. I didn't used to talk to experiencers. In fact, I used to discount the whole thing, but then I started talking to some of them and I gained a new sort of understanding and sympathy and empathy for experiencers. Bobby Broadway says, most all accounts are from the dream state. The aerial school sighting is different because the kids are awake and the grays are involved. Dawn says, my twin sister and I got it the worst. Oh, that's interesting that you're twins. I personally would be interested in hearing it myself. Complezer says, Truth Seekers for life. Yeah. JD says, I love your channel, Stephen. Time to do a deep dive on those EWD notes. Yes, I agree. And I had somebody that was going to help me with that. I got to find them and we have to get that going. I have several big stories that I just can't seem to get the research in to get them finished and prepared for you guys. But I have 2 more weeks of what I've been jokingly calling house arrests. I'm home with my 2 kids. After they go back to school, things will ease up for me and I can breathe again, and I'll have like, I don't know how many hours. Depends on how early I get up, but I'll have extra hours every day that I just don't have right now taking care of my children while they're home for summer. Wusha says, how come pyramids, stels, Easter Island monuments are all from help from the aliens, yet Stonehenge and other monuments in Europe are marvels built by white people? That's kind of racist. Yeah, good point. I never thought about it like that, but you could be right, right? Yeah. Complezer says, Truth Seekers, will there be a Lou from Lou Reviews feature episode soon? Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I haven't really talked to him or been keeping up. I've kind of been so busy, Complezer. I should catch up with a lot of people and a lot of people's shows, but I've been so busy with my children and the cabin and the new place. You know, I've been feeling like a ping pong ball lately too, because I'm bouncing back and forth between the cabin in the Pocono Mountains of Pennsylvania and back here to our home in Warminster, Pennsylvania, that I get, you know, honestly, I'm getting exhausted, and I like for life to be challenging, right? If everything's easy, there's no, you know, zest in life. But I got a little too much on my plate. I have this show, you know, other financial and business interests to worry about. I have the children to take care of. I have the cabin that needs a porch roof and some other things. And I have the new land where we're building a studio. And I'm feeling a little too challenged lately. So we have to make some adjustments, because I just have too much on my plate and I can't seem to get a lot done. But this is kind of what happens when you take on huge projects. And make no mistake about it, this show every week is a huge project to get the shows prepared and to do whatever I need to do and be here. But I show up every week and I do my very, very best to provide good quality content here. We want to thank Bastard. Come on, man. I'm trying to make friends with the YouTube algorithm, and that user ID is not helping, but thank you, Bastard and Cunt, for the kind and generous £2. Says, you're invaluable to the UFO, man. Grounded AF. Well, we thank you for your kindness, generosity, and support. It is much, much appreciated. And we appreciate everybody like you who is helping us. We're going to give a big praise the cash thank you to you, everybody who sends super chats, everybody who sends PayPal pledges. We'll check those in a moment, and all you kind and generous benefactors who help us out on Patreon or through a YouTube channel membership. We thank all of you. You guys are helping us. We're praising the cash.
Praise the cash. Praise the cash. Praise the cash. Praise the cash. Praise the cash. Praise the cash. Praise the cash.
Praise the cash, friends. Yeah. And also busy with some other creative projects. We'll be debuting a new music album soon called A Very Dark Place. And Mr. Ian was kind enough to lend me like 50 or 100 hours of render time on his amazing computer rig so that we could animate. We have an animation for the whole length of the album. And that was kind of a monumental effort, both on his part and on the part of the AIs and the part of the computer. It all worked out, and we'll be debuting that soon. I'm going to thank him for that, and our AI, which is coincidentally called Steve, AI Steve. I live in a strange world. I really do. And it's going to get stranger as we continue to utilize these emerging tools to help us make a better show. We've also got that set. That's one big thing I'm determined to finish. But there's some obstacles in my way. I got a huge window in here, replacement window. I got to find some place that's like 6 foot wide and 6 foot tall. I got to get rid of that thing. I don't know where it's going, where I'm putting it, where I'm. Yeah. But we thank each and every one of you for joining us tonight. We're checking with the PayPal pledgers. Make sure we didn't miss one of those. For those unaware, you can support us on PayPal with PayPal pledge, just as you can here on YouTube with a super chat. In fact, if you're sending small amounts, we prefer large amounts, I should say. We prefer you to do that on PayPal. So we want to thank Marie for a kind and generous $20 PayPal pledge, who says, great shows lately. Keep it going. We will. And thank you very much for your kindness, generosity, and support. We want to thank Justin for a kind and generous $35 PayPal. Thank you for your kindness, generosity, and support. No message, but thank you, Justin, initial JR, for your kindness, generosity, and support. It is much, much appreciated. And 1 second here. We want to thank initial CP, Christine, for your kindness, generosity, and support. Much, much appreciated. Kind and generous $10 PayPal pledge. We thank all of you for your kindness, generosity, and support. We've got Mickey Guillermo with kind and generous $5 super chat as well. We appreciate all the kindness, generosity, and support. Your support means a lot to us. We are independent content creators, and we are viewer supported. And it's through the kindness, generosity, and support of people like you that we get to continue this. Thanks all of you for helping us to praise the cash.
Praise the cash. Praise the cash. Praise the cash. Yeah. Praise the cash. Praise the cash. Praise the cash. Yeah. Praise it. Praise the cash. 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 Praise the cash.
Oh, I know that my critics are going to love these bumpers. That's why we're using them. That is why we are using them. We also want to make sure we thank Digital Vortex for letting us sample this new film. In the description of the video is the link to his channel. I highly recommend you subscribe to him. I highly recommend you watch the whole film. It's a free documentary that provides very accurate and good information. And to be quite honest with you, that's a shocking thing in the world of UFOs. Oh my God, this is real, accurate information through this whole thing. Yeah, great job, Digital Vortex. And let's check in one more time with the live chat. Okay, JD, hey Stephen, what crash retrieval, if any, do you feel are legitimate? In a topic we spend eliminating the BS, what do we have left to possibly grasp? Well, I have 7 UFO crashes on my list for my special report on UFO crashes, and 5 of the 7 I'm convinced are completely and totally fake. The other 2 may be fake. I think likely fake, but at the urgence and insistence of some people, I'm taking a deeper look. And those 2 cases are this Trinity case, one of them, and the other one is Aztec. I was pretty convinced that Aztec is fake. After all, it literally came from con artists, proven con artists, but people are insisting, no, you got to look at this and you got to look at this. So I'm taking a deeper look into those. I should say no. 4 of them I'm convinced. If I had to choose one, that is the most, to me, mysterious and compelling and honestly overwhelming, and that would be Roswell. There's just so much information. There's been more books written about Roswell than any other UFO event. And there's more documentaries and television shows and sources of information and witnesses. And there's just an endless supply of things to digest about Roswell. Then you get all the Roswell offshoots, like the alien autopsy film and the Roswell rock and the Roswell slides and the Roswell this and the Roswell that. And this was connected to Roswell. And it's quite the rabbit hole. And probably my favorite UFO crash. It is the most famous after all. It would be a boring show if it wasn't a point of difference and good discussion with people like you and B. Baker. Yeah, thank you, Wusha. And we welcome critics and cynics, and we welcome, debunkers and skeptics, but we also welcome believers and, people who are experiencers, people who are just exploring the mystery and leaving all possibilities open. We have a wide spectrum of different people here, and all are welcome. We ask you, please be respectful of everyone in the audience, and we thank you. I want to hear the Cambian take on Angels and Demons. Bambino 133T, it's coming. As soon as my children go back to school, I've got the demon ones in pre-production. That's what I call it. Sounds fancy, right? Just means that the script is written. I have a bunch of footage to fly into that. I have to film myself reading this script, which was very, very thoroughly and heavily researched. I go into the whole history of demons and exorcism and biblical references, non-canonical references from the so-called lost books of the Bible or banned books of the Bible. We have exploration of Enochian demonology. It is intense. And I will be bringing that to you as soon as possible. I hope to debut it sometime in the next month. That's one of my big projects that I want to get done and off my list of things to do. And thanks for reminding me to spend some time today working on that. UFO parts from YouTube, Planet Weird, real or maybe not? Yeah, I looked at that, Complicer. I don't think so. I mean, it looks like they went out to Area 51 and they picked up a bunch of trash. They did get lucky with one part that was from a real aircraft, but doesn't mean the rest of what they have. I'll stand by and wait for the analysis. It can't all be fake. Someone in military uniform came to our home to get my twin as children to keep our mouths shut. It scared my parents. Wow, you might have had a visit from the real life Men in Black, Dawn Lampert. Interesting. Yeah. Wusha is here and says the only problem with the Aztec is that they based the bulk of their evidence on a concrete base that was used to crane the craft out, but it was gas exploration area who would cap lots of sites with concrete. Yeah, I agree. The evidence for Aztec is sketchy, but I wanted to take one more stab at it before I come to conclusions. as I try to be cautious before declaring. I don't like research by proclamation. That is, oh, that story's fake. Well, why is it fake? Do you have convincing evidence that's fake? Have you gone through every bit of the evidence and evaluated the whole story, not just half the story that the people promoting it sell you, but the rest of the evidence as well? We try to be thorough here. We thank Rain Dimensions for kind and generous $10. Says, new watcher here. Just watch the history of those promoting Grush. Very informative. Do you think since Congress is involved, we'll see some truth come out of this, even if it debunks the grift? I think, Rain Dimensions, and by the way, thank you for your kindness, generosity, and support of the show. Much, much appreciated. We love new viewers here. Glad you found us. Thanks so much for your kindness. What I have said previously, and I think is very true, is that if this is all a grift, all these grifters have backed themselves into a terrible corner, because now there's going to be legislation essentially that says if you have if you have material from a crashed UAP or UFO, you have to give it to us. If you have biological material from a crashed UFO or UAP, you have to give it to us. Then there's the whistleblower protection. After this, if there's no evidence, there never will be, because they've backed themselves into a corner, and now the government is basically saying, come with the evidence. What do you got? Anything you got, we're gonna investigate, examine, and make determinations about. I think that we are going to get some truth out of all of this, but it's not going to be the truth or the disclosure that people want. It might be a disclosure that some people manipulated this whole situation to make money, but the downside was they just screwed themselves, because if there's whistleblower protection, if there is organizations to take whistleblower testimony and investigate claims and analyze metal samples and check out the biologics, if there's all these things in place, essentially the government is playing chicken with these UFO believers, saying, okay, all right, show us the evidence, right? I think some truth is going to come out of it. And thank you, Rain Dimensions, new viewer. Good to see you here. Glad you found us. Don't be a stranger. And thank you for your kindness, your generosity, and your support. And of course, for helping us, of course, to praise the cash.
Praise the cash, 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 praise the cash. Subscribe and hit the like button. Smash it like it's hot.
Smash it like it's hot. We have to remember to add a little bit of silence so StreamYard doesn't cut off the end. But thank you, Rain Dimensions. We thank you for your kindness, generosity, and support. It is much, much appreciated. And Miss Therese is here. We can tell this is a huge project, and it is mesmerizing us. Yeah, Amy Collins says, so admittedly, I have feet in both worlds, and it's almost disorienting how badly we are being misled. It's sad. Yeah, well, that's disinformation and misinformation. It divides us. It causes chaos. It causes irreparable harm, in my view, which I thought this was important. Rain Dimension says, thanks. I'll keep an eye on this channel since there's an overwhelming echo chamber. Yeah, we try not to have that here. We try to really do a good job at giving people good, solid evidence and the whole story. The rock one is the best. I don't think I uploaded that one yet. I'm sorry, Mr. Ian. I made a super long loop of the rock one, just sent it to Steve. Oh, he's going to make me use that. And do me a favor, stop sending me really, really useful stuff like an hour before showtime, because I have enough to do an hour before showtime. I don't need to be like, let me see if I can't get it. Oh, no. Yeah, we have to play this, so. Well, we thank you, Mr. Ian, and we'll use this. Yes, we will. Yeah, to thank all of our kind and generous benefactors, of course, on the way out. We will definitely use that. Yes. Praise the cash, Mr. Ian. Thank you for your help and assistance. That's the whole point of it all. Yeah. The thing about Aztec is a couple have spent their whole lives investigating the subject, like 80 life is 80 years at best, maybe better spent on elsewhere in living life. Yeah, that couple, that's what I have to look into, because people are like, no, you got to see this couple. They did all this investigatory work. They spent all this money investigating the case. So I'm on that. I got to digest all of that and figure some things out before we can do a brief history of UFO crashes show. Well, one could say that about the UFO research in general. Yes. Ice Cream Shots is here. Welcome, Ice Cream Shots. Did you see that Grush news that he suffered from PTSD? Was that in the original News Nation interview, or he just leave that out to shape his narrative? Yeah. Yeah. Suddenly he's got post-traumatic stress disorder, right? From what? He wasn't in any wars that I'm aware of. What has he got PTSD from? Right? I don't know. And by the way, I'm blocked. Somebody sent me that tweet in the thread, and I can read the replies, but not the. I hate this. Didn't Twitter change things, and you can't just go to an incognito window now? David Grush and friends are effectively offering a golden calf to UFO fanatics and believers. Yeah, an idol, right? If only we got to know each other better instead of chasing aliens. Yes, Matt G. If you aren't already, get on our Discord server. Yes, chat 24/7 right here. Yeah, it's definitely a good place to be. Seemed like a sympathy play to me. Yeah, people are starting to scrutinize his claims. Now we got it. Oh, you're attacking a victim of post-traumatic stress, and then they're going to pull out the autism card. He's got autism. Why are you attacking him? Well, the guy stood on the floor of Congress and said that there's alien bodies being hidden from the American people. He's going to get some scrutiny. Buckle up, Buttercup, right? If that's causing you PTSD. Yeah, PTSD is very popular to have. I agree. Yeah. Well, friends, we have done our due diligence, and I want to thank all of you for joining us. We will be back here, same bat time, same bat channel. Tomorrow night, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, I will have another great show for you. I was busily preparing this week's shows all weekend. Tomorrow is going to be another great one. And we thank you for being here. I've been trying to focus lately on doing shows that will hold up against the test of time. Will this information still be good and valid and usable and useful for people 2 years from now? We're really trying to put forth good shows that will be. And I want to thank everybody who has helped me to do so. We want to thank our chat room moderators. We want to thank you kind and generous benefactors, you Twitch subscribers, you people buying merchandise, you PayPal pledgers, you Patreon supporters, you YouTube channel members, you super chatters, super sticker people, and of course the super thanks people. You can still throw a couple bucks in our hat, even if you're watching a replay, and we appreciate every one of you who are doing that. We'll take one final question from Wusha. Just a personal question in your life. When will the time come for your children to demand more of your time than this subject? You're lucky your boys are easy. Girls are hard. Well, they already are. Everything is a balance. I mean, honestly, I spend a great deal of time with them, and I try to have some kind of balance, but you can't have all kids all day 24/7 and you'll go crazy. You got to have some distraction from the kids, and then you need a distraction from this nonsense. So I don't know. I balance it out. When I get too worked up about this stuff, I go, play with my sons or spend some time at the cabin or whatever. It's got to be some balance, but thank you, Wusha. I appreciate that. And for those unaware, I do have a special needs son who's nonverbal autistic, which means he doesn't really speak or communicate. He's very, very affected by autism, and he requires a lot. And because of that, he requires a lot of attention and a lot of care. We kind of thought that things would improve over time, but it is what it is. I have to. He's very important to me. I'm kind of his primary caretaker, so I do all I can to just keep him healthy and happy. That's all we can do. Today he was running around with his brother. Then he was getting into things. you know, he has these sensory issues and needs. So he'll just get into whatever he can. It doesn't matter if it's like a bottle of shampoo or something. He makes slips and slides in the bathroom if you're not careful. We have everything locked down. It's very challenging. But, you know, he needs me. So that's obviously more important to me than anything, including this show or any of this stuff. Yeah. And B. Baker reminding everybody to hit like, subscribe, and share. Yes, yes. And we thank all of you. Please be sure to like, comment, subscribe, share these videos on your social media. It really does help. We'll be back here fighting the good fight once again tomorrow night at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I hope that you will be here with us. I got another good show planned, and it would be nice to see you, my old friends, and hopefully some new friends as well. So that's all we got for you tonight, friends. Until next time, my name is Stephen Cambion. Good night, and God bless all of you.